Cool. What's going on, guys? This is Nathan. Welcome to My Cup of Tea, episode number 15. A very exciting episode to be discussing. First off, with just like one simple movie topic that will always be my favorite in regards because it's Spider-Man stuff. But also, we're going to be deep diving a bunch into Harry Potter, majority of the episode. And we'll also be joined by a special guest who we will be introducing. But starting off, joining as always, we have Carson.
What's going on, guys? Sorry, my headphones going out. I don't know if I'm glitching or if the stream is glitching, but happy to be here. I'm excited. You know, I said on Twitter today, it's my cup of butterbeer. I wish we had a special logo for this. We should design one after of all four of us sitting in Hogsmeade drinking some butterbeer. But yeah, I'm excited. This is one of my favorite franchises. It's honestly swapped places with me at some points in my life for being like higher up there for me in terms of like everything than Star Wars, and it's weird that we haven't like dedicated so much of an episode to it, and I'm excited to just dive into all of it because I could literally talk about all the stuff for hours. There's so much to get to, but I think we all have our opinions, and it's gonna be awesome.
Also joining us, we have Evan.
Yeah, great to be back. Yeah, I had a lot of fun binging all of these Harry Potter movies. I just finished part 2, literally like an hour or two ago before Big Brother came on, so I'm all caught up. I didn't take that much notes on the final 2 movies, but they're all so stuck in my head that I can pretty much go off the cuff with that one. But yeah, like Carson said, there was a point in time after Avengers of the Sith came out in 2005 where I was much more of a Harry Potter person than a Star Wars person because I thought Star Wars was done, and I was full on in the Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, Deathly Hallows kind of guy. So I love Harry Potter to life. It's probably like my second or third favorite franchise of all time, next to Star Wars and Mission Impossible. So I can't wait to talk about it all with you guys.
And also joining us, a very special guest today, my good friend Emma.
Hi guys, I'm Emma from FanCity Central, and I'm here to talk all things Harry Potter. And I'm repping the house elves today because they don't get enough representation in the films, which we'll talk about. But I'm very excited to be here with these guys and chat all things Harry Potter. If you guys follow me on Instagram or YouTube, you know I love Harry Potter. So I have a love-hate relationship with these films. So I'm excited to hear everyone's opinions on them.
All right. So to that point, we will now be discussing. Before we jump into all that madness, this big news that broke, of course, the day after our last episode.
I know, right?
I went on a whole Spider-Verse spiel. Always. But I was super excited to hear that confirmation. Is that Benedict Cumberbatch returning as Doctor Strange in Spider-Man 3, which I'm so happy about. And it's funny because I was trying so hard to plead a case of multiverse stuff against Evan last episode.
It was this is making me look like an a-hole. I'm fighting back so hard. I'm like, Nathan, give me a reason. Like, I don't see this happening. I'm like, there's no way. Like, give me a way to connect this. Like, I can't see it. The next thing I know, Doctor Strange is in. I'm like, okay, that solves everything. It's basically the answer to everything. I am not excited about the trade say like Doctor Strange is working as Peter's mentor in this movie, taking the place of Tony Stark. I'm not too jazzed about that. I mean, I guess Peter always has to have like an MCU character in his movies now, I guess. Like, he can't just be alone for once.
It is actually contractual. Like from the get-go, it's a requirement.
It's disappointing. I'm like, I hope this is like a Thor Ragnarok situation where Doctor Strange shows up a little bit, and then the rest of it is just like Spidey's hijinks. But otherwise, yeah, this does kind of go in line with the Spider-Verse stuff. Hopefully not Andrew and Toby, wherever he's at these days. But hopefully like this just explains Electro and that's it. And then Spider-Man has to deal with that. But yeah, that's about as much as connective multiverse stuff that I want.
Nathan's like,
I'm like, well, because I'm also like, I completely get the mentor criticism stuff. I will say, I feel like Peter could, of all the movies, need a mentor this round when he's very much wanted around probably the world. So
he's a lawyer, not a mentor.
Okay, that's true, and I very much want Daredevil to pop up because the rights will be back soon. But I can wishful thinking. It's kind of weird now to like have Doctor Strange in it because now I'm like, that I don't know how likely it's gonna happen now. But I guess it all depends like how things are gonna go and like how much like multiverse stuff is gonna bleed through from other projects. But it should be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and it makes me think you're like, oh yeah, I think because we'd probably know that Doctor Strange is showing up in WandaVision at some point, but it makes me think that some of the stuff in the shows is going to be a little more integral than we thought in terms of testing the waters for all the multiverse stuff. I think WandaVision will be the first taste of that, and then we'll get a bigger role in Spider-Man 3, and then all the way up to Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. I think it's just going to go all out. I'm excited to see where that leads in terms of he being the movie with Peter. I'm torn between Nathan and Evan's perspective because I really think Doctor Strange is kind of integral to the future to the MCU, but at the same time, I don't want him to bog down everything, and especially with the Spider-Man movie, with one of the main complaints of the last movie being, how, it was like a post-Endgame kind of dealing with Tony's death, but also Tony was very linked to the villains and the actual plot of the movie. And so I think a lot of people right now are like, hey, can we just have a, Spider-Man movie where he creates his own conflict and he has to deal with it on his own. Obviously, he's going to have to talk to some people to figure it out, but he's not going to have a big mentor role. So I'll be really curious to see what actually Doctor Strange impacts in the movie. Like Evan said, will it be just the Electro stuff? Will it be kind of the bigger picture stuff that's connecting to future movies? I'm not sure what it is going to be. For some reason, this movie had 0 rumors going about it, and then all of a sudden there was 17,000 in a day. And so I'm behind. I saw 7 things today. They're like, it started filming today, and I'm like, how did it start filming? It's crazy. And then they're like, Tobey and Andrew are coming back, but then that was never reported. It was just been said by 5 different sources. So
yeah,
I'm just kind of waiting and seeing what is gonna actually happen with who's in this movie. And I kind of don't want to find out if, in fact, that Tobey and Andrew are in it. And it's going to be a wild ride to get to this release date because I hope we don't learn too much more.
Yeah. Emma, what do you think?
I think Marvel's pretty good at locking stuff down. So I feel like hopefully they will not release a lot of spoilers. I personally would be here for the multiverse thing and seeing Andrew and them come back. I don't know about Tobey. I mean, I guess you have to get them all, but
exactly.
It was never my favorite Spider-Man. I mean, he was, I guess, the first one we grew up with, but he was never my favorite one. But I think it would be cool. But I get the criticism from the last film too, and letting Tom have his own movie as Spider-Man, which we haven't really gotten yet. So honestly, I could see both sides. I'm just excited for more MCU because
it's been a while. It's been a long time.
So it's been a while. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, absolutely.
By this time next year, we're going to be 3 MCU movies, right? Or 2 at least. Black Widow.
Pandemic barring, yeah.
Pandemic barring, yeah, exactly. So you never really know.
Yeah.
It's exciting. I'm curious also. Before we leave, is this Electro thing? Is he going to be coming out of the multiverse on accident or on purpose? Is somebody yanking him out of the Amazing Spider-Man world? Does he want to be in this different New York? What's his mindset going to be like? Because I'm on board now. This is Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. This is the You Forgot My Birthday Electro. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been intrigued. I would imagine the most compelling form of that would be them kind of being thrown into the mess unwillingly, not understanding what's going on until they're kind of in the mess. Also, in regards to Doctor Strange, because that is really the main focus topic, I've said before, there's a lot of great adventures and stories between Spidey and Strange. I know they've also, that's probably because they were both created by Steve Ditko originally, which is it's always great to like see them crossover, and I think they've even like addressed like in like one comic how like they had like a similar like gesture of hands where they compare it.
That's funny.
You're right.
Which I would like to see on screen too. But like they've also like done, I think there was like a really great like horror run that they did where it was kind of like fever dream based. Like I think Spidey was drugged after a battle or something, and he had to like maneuver through like these different dark reality things. I don't know if they would go like full on board like that, but
I saw that on Twitter actually of a comic page of, I can't remember what was happening, but basically like Doctor Strange was like kind of ushering him into a different reality and saying like, are you sure you want to do this? Like the effects that this could have, or like something like there's no going back from this, which is an interesting angle in terms of I saw people talking about it in terms of knowing who Spidey is. Does he go into a different dimension or alternate timeline where he doesn't know who he is at first, and then that kind of crashes and burns because it probably would be a temporary solution? And I'd be super curious to see that come crashing down, and like the effects of whatever world he goes to is like worse than what just talking it out with people on the Earth that people find out that he's Spider-Man. So I think that could be a funny angle, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. I know you all just want to get to why we're here. So where to begin? It's the big question, because it's a lot. Do you guys want to like break down movie by movie?
I guess
easiest.
Yeah, let's just start with Philosopher's or Sorcerer's Stone, depending on where you live.
Maybe we should go through what our houses are first and what our rankings of the films are. Or do you want to do the rankings at the end?
We can do rankings last.
Okay.
I haven't taken the house quiz in a long time, but I'll go first because I remember I was Hufflepuff when I took it years ago.
I can so see that.
I was like, really, Hufflepuff? Okay, I mean Cedric's cool and all, but okay. But it was interesting. But yeah, I haven't retaken it. But years ago, I always remembered like I got Hufflepuff, my brother got Ravenclaw.
Very cool.
I am a Gryffindor. My mic is in the way, but I have. I pleaded with the Sorting Hat. It wasn't my first choice. No, I'm just kidding.
They were gonna put me in Slytherin, man.
They were gonna put me in Slytherin. It was gonna go downhill from there. I rerouted. It's fine. I always forget my my bonus, because on the Pottermore quizzes these days, you can take the housing quiz, and then you can take the Patronus quiz, and it tells you like what your actual animal is, which is really cool, because I think like having like a spirit animal is kind of cool, and also like more indicative of like personality wise what everybody is. What was mine?
Yeah, I haven't taken that one before.
I think it was some sort of bird. I don't remember.
I also am a Hufflepuff. The one thing we can agree on.
2 Hufflepuffs and 2 Gryffindors. I love it.
That's crazy, yeah.
That's pretty great. I've taken the Patronus test. Originally, I took it like back in the past, and originally my Patronus was a fox, which was really cool. And I'd always stuck with that. But then I took it a lot more recently after years. And then I can't remember the exact name of it, the type of cat that it was. But it was a cat where like the tail is like a stub.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, all right, that's not a fox, but all right.
Mine's a dog when I took it.
Dog. I might take mine tonight and update you guys.
You know what'd be cool is if you could have Fang as a Patronus. If you had Hagrid's dog as a Patronus, and he'd just be like,
oh yeah,
because you can't imagine him like running around. Like Order of the Phoenix, when all of them are like running around the room requirement. I can't imagine Fang coming out of your wand, like going at the Dementors very fast, just like literally limping towards them. It's funny.
It's kind of growling a little. Yeah, it's. Now I just want to talk about creatures, honestly. They're so great. What's your top favorite creature of this franchise? Because I really love Buckbeak.
That's so hard. One? You gotta pick one. That's hard.
Jeez.
Like,
I guess the Phoenix from Chamber of Secrets. I forget what it's called right now.
Oh, Fox.
Fox.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So cool.
The theme song there is beautiful. Love it.
I don't know if
I'm
I could
trying to
pick
think.
one. I feel like the Hippogriff, like Buckbeak, and then Thestrals are tied for me. I love both of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say
great
those
picks.
because I love the detail of when nobody else can see them, but those who've seen death.
Yeah.
I love that scene with like Luna and all that when they first introduced at the carriage, and they all just think Harry's crazy. And Luna is up there just like reading like one of her weird books that she has, and I'm just like, yes, Luna. Like
I think it was upside down too.
Yeah, that's how she reads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Initially I was saying I said like a Buckbeak, but then when Evan brought up Fox, I was like, oh, that is cool.
They have a lot of really cool ones. I like the dragons as well. Like
Mandrake. No.
The Horntail, yeah.
Mandrakes.
Mandrake.
You know which ones I forgot about is the little like in Deathly Hallows Part 2. Yeah, the little pixies that come out of the in the room requirement when they find the broomsticks under like all the when the fire's going at them. I'm like,
honestly,
I forgot about this.
I found the basilisk was such a cool design.
Yeah,
great.
Which when we get to Chamber, I have like a lot to say on that for filmmaking because it's so cool. But yeah, let's start year one. Happy birthday, Harry! You're a wizard. It's like I think like when I initially started the rewatch, it just felt like super nostalgic just starting from year one. Because you just like start with like the whole stuff with the broom cover and everything, and just like the doorstep, and just like, oh my god, there's so far we're gonna go in these like 10 years, man.
Yeah. I love the Sorcerer's Stone. It's not perfect. Like the first two movies are just very wholesome. They're very heartwarming. They're very much so Christmas movies in a sense. You can sit back and like watch these by a fire, feel very cozy watching these kinds of movies, and because this is very homey in that sense. Like the way, besides like the way Harry gets treated in these movies, like as soon as he finds his home in Sorcerer's Stone, especially in Chamber of Secrets, like you see him like get used to this world, and I just love Sorcerer's Stone because it's more of like a discovery kind of movie. Like you're getting introduced to this world. Christopher Columbus is perfectly he's not the best director of this franchise, but for setting up the foundation of what this franchise should be, he's a great get. I mean, the guy did Home Alone. I think he wrote Gremlins. He's just a perfect person to get for this kind of movie. He doesn't have a unique style that we see like in the later films, especially the third one. But what he does here is just like a perfect foundation for what we see in this franchise.
Yeah, and I think without his like kind of fantasy eye and kind of just kind of honestly it has like that joyful kid point of view where it feels like anything that's like intended to be like very much from the kid's point of view, or anything that's like supposed to be mysterious, like it's not that big of a mystery, but like you're so invested in it because it's the kids trying to figure it out, and somehow it conveys that so well. And I like these first movies are so important because I don't think anything else worked without them. And just to mention right off the bat is like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, the casting. Like I don't know how they did that. Like it's for them being as young as they were. It's still those first two movies as young kids are still probably my favorite like kid performances. They're really, really good, and I think it's just so impressive they were able to do that at such a young age, and it makes those movies so much more enjoyable. I was watching what was the movie? Have you guys seen the zombie movie 28 Days Later?
I haven't.
Well, anyways, there's a young kid that's in it, and she's just not a good actress, and it like takes you out of it so much, and you're like, I'm sorry, like you're just Because they're like reading a script. Like there's no point in time in these first two movies that it feels like they're reading a script. It genuinely feels like these kids are just having conversations and going about their school year, and it's perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I agree.
Oh yeah, wait, yeah, please go.
I don't know how this works. Yeah, no, I agree. They're super nostalgic. I think it's we're doing rankings later, but the three are my top three. I love how they started, and I just love how you have to appreciate this movie, how they made that world. Like, we had never seen it before, and they did such a fantastic job of the sets and the costumes and the props and just bringing the whole thing to life. And the casting was immaculate, like completely. And it's so cool to watch the behind the scenes too, because of the three of them are just completely their characters. Like Carson said, I don't know how they cast them, but they are them. It's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. I think like a big takeaway. Not really takeaway. No, it was the thing I noticed. I always notice when I redo my rewatch, that by the time we get to Chamber of Secrets, I notice Harry's voice drop, specifically because obviously they're aging. But it was funny. I thought it was just like a big contrast between 1 and 2. But then when I was watching Sorcerer's Stone, I was hearing like the puberty like play ping pong with itself through the scenes. I was like, oh, hey, wait a second. Like that voice is a lot deeper while he's getting those keys.
I think the most important aspect of this film, in terms of like setting up the foundation, the identity of the franchise, is John Williams' score. Like John Williams' score is the epitome of the franchise. When you think of Harry Potter, you think of this theme, and John Williams is the perfect composer to come in and give us those warm, great feelings from that iconic score from every single track. Like I was listening to it like over the weekend. I'm like, dang, like these Williams scores. Beautiful.
You just feel
like,
at home. Like
exactly.
It's immaculate.
Yeah.
And I praise
I like all the little scenes in this movie too.
Oh, me too.
Oh yeah. I praise like all future composers for not like completely like rewriting a lot of the Williams stuff. They just kind of like adapt it to the scenarios.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you can't like it's a foundation.
Yeah, Nicholas Hooper's score and I can't remember the composer for Goblet of Fire. They do a really great job of like incorporating like the themes, but like in like a subtle way that, you know, just amps up whatever the tension is. And going back to like John Williams in the first movie, like gosh, the score, like when he's staring at the mirror and he sees his parents for the first time in the mirror. I love the score when he first gets to Hogwarts and puts his stuff away, and him and Hedwig are sitting in the window. That is one of the most heartwarming moments because he's finally like out of the cupboard and just like living life, and it's so amazing.
There's so many like great moments of just like okay. So the mirror of I think Erised. First time I cried watching the series in my rewatch because there's a lot of emotional moments. Yeah, there's so many great points. Like I legit got like chills when like we went to Ollivander's the first time and like the wand
such a
selection.
Good scene.
It's so good. And then I just like when just like right after you just looks out the window, it's like Hagrid bought Hedwig for Harry. And I was like, oh my god, because I've always loved okay, if we're talking like it's not even like a magical creature, but like Hedwig is probably like my favorite ever in the series. I always like grew up wanting a snowy owl. They're so cute. Yeah, like so many great little moments, great acting. I always found it funny when we'd like go into the final act and like we're doing like all the trials to get to the stone. When they do the chess game, I was like always like, whoa, this is so cool seeing like this giant chess. And then I'm sure like there was a proper reason, but I was always like, Ron, why are you on the knight?
Isn't that funny? And he's so confident too. He's like, knight to E3.
Like I'm pretty sure.
I love him so much.
I'm pretty sure Harry and Hermione were like in place of missing pieces or something. That's what it looked like because they were moving Well, but like Ron, it's there, man. And he doesn't get stabbed either. He has like a short fall.
There's a shot where like he falls, like the rubble hits his face a little bit. I'm like, ouch, like, that's kind of hurt.
Well, I didn't see that. All right,
it's very funny. I'm like, ouch, this guy is hurting.
Right. Yeah, a lot of great moments. Voldemort has a nose. So that's.
I was going to speak about Voldemort here because I don't know. It might be a controversial take. I'm very curious to see what you guys think of Voldemort in the later films, but I think Voldemort is very good in the short amount of time that we see him in the Sorcerer's Stone. At least the back of his head is very horror-like, very demented. His voice is very hiss-like. Like as we see in the books, like you imagine him to have like this very hiss-like sound. You don't really see that as much when I'm blanking on the Voldemort actor right now.
Ralph Fiennes.
When Ralph Fiennes comes in, he's very much so. Ralph Fiennes very much of a different, more human-like Voldemort, which I don't love, but the Sorcerer's Stone version that we get here is very like very horror-filled, especially for somebody like Harry in the audience when they're kids watching this. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy is like the most frightening thing in the world right now. So I love that portrayal there.
I found it
so good.
I think I found it like really creepy as a kid when like Harry touches Quirrell's face and it just starts like crumbling. Like that's creepy.
Terrifying.
The first time you hear Voldemort yell is when he's looking into the mirror and Harry comes up with the lie that Ron said when Ron's
House Cup.
I just won the House Cup, and he's just like, liar, and I'm like,
tell the truth.
That is so
what
terrifying.
Did you see? He's just going all in. Good on the Quirrell actor.
But yeah, like you were saying, the third act is very powerful. It's very intense. It's very fun. In the build-up, of course, because the whole movie, there's like the whole mystery going on, and there's a lot of mysteries throughout the Harry Potter franchise. We see that a lot.
It's Snape.
We see that a lot.
The default answer.
In 2, 3, not so much in 4-ish, or 5, but we get that in 6 as well. But there's a lot of mystery. I think this one is set up very well. Again, it's I think there's a mystery in 4 that we'll get to, which I don't really like. But the one in here is like it's very well written, and I want to see Emma's. I'm curious to see what Emma thinks about this. But one of my main negatives for this film in particular has to do with the way it's very much an adaptation. I think Christopher Columbus knew that, of course. It's an adaptation of the book. And these books, 1 and 2, are very short. They're not the longest books in the series. So we had the luxury of just going from script to page here, or from page to script, in a sense, in terms of the script of the movies. And in that sense, the movie adaptation for the Sorcerer's Stone here is very much so straight from the page. And as good as a viewer who also read the books can be like, oh, so this is what this is how it's conveyed in the visual medium. But at the same time, as we'll see like in the later movies, Christopher Columbus doesn't really take full advantage of like this being a movie. Like there's different there's different creative liberties you can take with Hogwarts and with the characters that you don't really see in this one. Is very much so, hey, we're eating at the Grand Hall. Next scene, they're in the dorm. Hey, scene. It's like very much. As I was watching,
it's shot for purpose, but it's just more of like following the kids around. Like after
it's
this,
very
after
like
the first two,
of observing the world for the first time, which I can like give it a pass for because it's the first one. So
right, it establishes the language of each, like the setting of it, and then I think what's so smart about it is that the future directors take it. You never see the Great Hall in the same way you do in the first two movies, based on what's going on. After like, for example, like in Goblet of Fire, like after
magical creature
first kind of death in the series, the Great Hall is so empty and stuff. So you never return to how like the visual languages he establishes, but without I think it just is such a good job of like getting you attached to how Hogwarts feels. And so that's why I think it's okay that he adapted it pretty much straightforward and didn't necessarily have like as much flair as some people in the later movies did. I think it's just really well at setting up that visual setting of Hogwarts and Diagon Alley and everywhere.
Yeah, going off of that, like I think it for me it feels like a play. Like in a play, you're seeing certain act 1, act 2, act 3. You're seeing a set, and then cue the lights, then you go on to the next set, and then so on and so forth. There's no sense of interconnectivity between Hogwarts. Hogwarts is supposed to be like a character, and in this movie we get introduced to Hogwarts through one of my favorite shots, like when they're on the boats and you see the whole expanse of Hogwarts. It's a fantastic shot. It's very atmospheric in a sense, but you don't really get like the interior language of Hogwarts as a character as much so as you do in some of the later films that I love, like especially Prisoner of Azkaban.
I did notice like it wasn't really until Azkaban that I was like, wait, I'm starting to recognize this.
Exactly. I think Quran and Azkaban, I'll get to it, but like Quran, like he completely like changes the structure of Hogwarts in a way where
and it goes to the one I'm familiar with.
It's very cool in a sense, like the layout that you see in the first two that's kind of non-existent, like Quran kind of changes it up, and like you see how they get from the grand hall to the staircase to the dorm room, which you don't really see in the first two films. They're just like eating, then the next shot they're sleeping, and the next shot they're playing Quidditch outside or something like that. Which again, it works because like the purpose of this movie is to draw the viewers in. You get that sense of atmosphere, you get that sense of setting, like the magical way they're going through the alleyways, or they're going through the wand shops and going through the corridors in Hogwarts. It's very fun and inviting. It's just not very unique that I like to see in my Harry Potter movies.
Yeah. Just like touch on like, I think of like big moments that stand out of just like big yet little moments is like the first time you're like going to platform 9 3/4. I think is like super fun, and just like the starting establishment of the friendships, like Harry meets Ron and the Weasleys as a whole, which is so great. Which is funny because I didn't remember Ginny even being in Sorcerer's Stone. I always remember her first popping up in Chamber of Secrets when she's like first runs downstairs. So awesome that they are casting in advance. Like, I commend them for like all the classmates too for like sticking for the series for most of them. Like I was like identifying them every time. I was like Seamus, Dean, like everyone.
Speaking of casting, what are you guys' thoughts on Richard Harris as Albus Dumbledore in comparison to Gambling that we get later on?
It's very like grandfathery as the first time. He's very like warm and like inviting, but then like, it's funny because I feel like he gets even more mobile the franchise because he seems like very like ancient in the first two, and then like in like Prisoner of Azkaban, he's like, welcome students, like
I think it's like it sucks that I of course I would have loved to see his take throughout the whole thing, but oddly enough I think the recasting, because of him passing away, like fit like I love Gambon's Dumbledore just because of how I think he gives some of the best performances in the series, especially later on. Like Half-Blood Prince is like one of my favorite performances. So good in Half-Blood Prince. And for me, he just so but it's just like I guess he took over Dumbledore for me, and so like I guess I just see him more as Dumbledore. And I'm biased because obviously there's 6 movies with him as Dumbledore versus the 2, so I can't really compare how things amped up because Dumbledore is more so kind of mythic in the first 2. Is like, oh my god, it's Dumbledore, like, but then later on you get to know Dumbledore, and so it's like it's just a different relationship.
Yeah, it definitely like. I think it also like kind of fits with just like the general tone of the series, because like the first couple films are very like child wonder filled, so I think that version of Dumbledore fits best. But then like when you get to stuff like Prisoner of Azkaban where stuff's getting like a lot more serious, I think he fits the mold like very well, especially with like how like deep things are getting, because like and it's funny because like you watch the first couple films and it's just like all right, well, you guys are in trouble. Like, the house points removed. Like, okay. And then you get to, like, Prisoner of Azkaban. It's like, you could have died, man.
Harris was my favorite Dumbledore, but like Carson was saying, like, he never got a chance to see the tones change. We never got a chance to see what he would have done when the tones changed, or when she had, like, at that point, she hadn't even written Deathly Hallows yet. We hadn't even figured out his full story yet. So I think I think it is tough to compare. I personally like his tone of Dumbledore better, but I think that just has to stem from a couple of the scenes that Michael Gambon does in the later films that I take offense to. So I don't know.
It would have been interesting seeing Richard Harris do a spell, like
Yeah.
let alone fighting Voldemort in the Ministry.
That'd have been fun. I mean, even without the physical side, I think he's less quirky here. Like Dumbledore is like a quirky kind of wizard in a way, especially like in Azkaban. Like some of the little side like dialogue notes he gives, like to Harry and Hermione sometimes. Like you don't really see that. This one, he's like you said, Nathan. He's very mythic in the sense. He's very like Grandpa Dumbledore. He can do no wrong here, even though you know, like this is the same guy that knew your parents were going to die.
But I can't imagine. I can't imagine Harris's Dumbledore like kind of like having that like humor. Like I'm thinking of like the Lion and like Half-Blood Prince, where Dumbledore was like to be like after the whole scene when Ron finally breaks up with the girl and he comes and he's just standing there and just like watching it, and the girl finally walks out and he's like to be young in love. Like, I can't imagine Harris as Dumbledore doing that, but again, I think I can't judge it because he wasn't there. So
yeah, but in the movie he's fantastic. I love Richard Harris.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think we'll definitely like break down like the evolution of the characters as we go. But I think we're starting to get everywhere now. So let's talk about Chamber of Secrets, which I personally feel is Sorcerer's Stone, but like done way better personally for me. Because it's like a preset like mystery you're trying to solve. But I feel like initially, like right off the bat, the camera work was like way more visually interesting to me.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I totally agree with you, Nathan. I think the camera work, I think Christopher Columbus kind of like finding his footing in the first one. A lot of the camera work is very like stilted and not very dynamic. But in the second one, especially in the Quidditch matches, I can see like the camera work there is much more so fluid and much more so dynamic. And you're like, okay, Christopher Columbus is doing a lot of better work here, which is fascinating because I was watching an interview and he had a difficult time doing this movie. He said like he didn't want to come back to do any other movies after this one because Chamber of Secrets kind of like broke him in a sense. But I think his filmmaking was very much like better here. I think he did a great job here in terms of, again, it's very much still I still feel like it's like a play, which isn't bad because the first two movies are adapted so closely, like which is good in terms of adaptation kind of sense, but filmmaking is still left to be desired here in terms of like its uniqueness at all. It just feels like a shot for shot kind of thing. Like Harry breaks his arm, Harry goes to the hospital. Oh, this is when he listens in on like them telling him about like what's going on. Like everything is like straight from the page, which is great. But I don't feel like he uses the visual style to his advantage here. But he does use some great filmmaking techniques later on, like in terms of like the set designs and the way the basilisk looks in this movie.
Yeah.
So,
the chamber itself, that whole sequence is really, I feel like where he stepped it up in terms of action from the first movie to the second, and like he gets in there and it's totally like it's like a horror vibe. Like Ginny's on the floor, this dude just Tom Riddle walks out of nowhere and you're like, what is going on? And then of course we all know that it's Voldemort, but then he like spells it out and like you're from like Harry's perspective and you're like, oh my god, like it's Voldemort.
And there's like so many like things. Like I think it's the longest film in the franchise, like 2 hours 40 minutes.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but which is funny because like it's so like whimsically enjoyable that it just kind of flows.
Definitely.
And there's like it's funny because there's so much like just from the get-go, just like going to like the Weasleys and just like exploring like their house and their magic and stuff and the flying car and everything. It's so fun. Like stuff with like Aragog in the forest. Like all these like new things presented, and I'm just like, there's a lot happening, but I'm having a great time.
That
like,
car. Can we talk about the car? This thing is invincible. Like, it just shows back up in the forest and like goes full reverse out of the. I'm like, this thing is insane. Fast and Furious movies put to absolute shame. It reversed out of the Forbidden Forest with an army of spiders chasing it. So funny and so good.
After getting beaten down harsh by the Whomping Willow, which was a great new addition as well. Which I also loved, just like the opening scene in general, when like not just like the whole like stealing the car and like the train and everything. Like, that was great stuff. But like when they get to the castle and then they have the confrontation with Snape in the office, because I'm just like, Alan Rickman's so good. I love him so much.
So good.
The entire cast is just immaculate. But I love this film because it's adapted super closely. But I agree, it doesn't have a lot of personality in terms of the filmmaking, which I think is why I love Prisoner of Azkaban so much more. But there are some scenes that are really, really good. I agree. The chamber is probably my favorite part of the film. And then just like the mystery of how the scenes where they're unraveling it with Hermione, where they're walking through the hallway and going through everything that happened. And then the car where his dad's like, oh, did you really? And they're at the she hits him over the head. Like, it's so good. Like, I think it was the first time we saw the Weasley house too, and it was such a homey vibe. Like the Burrow was just so.
The Burrow was like fantastic in this one.
Comparing it to the Dursleys, it's just like night and day, and I love that.
Speaking of the Dursleys, we get one of my top 10 favorite scenes in the entire franchise in this movie, where Ron rescues Harry, lifts him out of the house, and he says, "Happy birthday, Harry." It's a small moment, but I freaking love it. I love it so much. It's so heartwarming. I cry every time. I'm like, "Thank you. That is not your home, Harry. Get out of there. Get out of there." And I love that he actually does get out of there in the third one. He leaves.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that Ron rescues him. That's his best friend. It's his brother at this point. And happy birthday, Harry, because he remembered. And look,
I love the beginning.
There's so
the
many
Vernon
points.
joke. The Vernon, when he comes up after Dobby's like jumping around. He's like, "You ruined my punchline."
And this is the first movie we had Dobby. And I love
Dobby.
He's so great. Which it was so funny, like in like context of like knowing like film in general today, where I just go back, I was like, that was Toby Jones.
Yeah, I know, right?
That's amazing. Oh my god. Like he's out here playing Hydra scientist now, but
the effects also really step it up in this movie compared to the first one as well, which is great. And I love that we still get Quidditch because it declines in the later films. Quidditch is one of my favorites.
This is probably my favorite Quidditch match in the films. I think so. It's just so good. And then the way Gilderoy Lockhart just breaks.
We gotta talk about
it. Yeah, we gotta get
so
there.
good.
Harry breaks his arm and then he turns it to like Jello or whatever. It's like I die of laughter every time. It's like, oh, whoops! Like wasn't supposed to happen.
There's no
character
left.
Yeah, but Kenneth, I said in my tweet, Kenneth Branagh deserves an Oscar for this. I don't care what anybody says.
I love him, dude.
I love him. Yeah,
you know what?
Character so well.
I won't disagree with you purely because I think just every time they pull up in a hallway, he's always like last, and he's like the defense against the dark arts teacher, and he's like,
oh, shame. I need a perfect counter curse.
Yeah, I would have known. One of my favorite moments.
Robes, like he embodied that character so well. The flippancy of everything, and when he's in the chamber, though, that's my favorite scene. Oh, do you live here?
Fantastic.
I like when they go up to the office and he's packing and he just freezes and he's like, and then he goes into his whole monologue.
Slams the case and he's like,
he goes into his whole monologue. He's like, I'm good at memory charms. And then he goes up to them, and Ron with his stupid broken wand is just like, don't even think about it. It's so good.
It's even like right from the get-go, like the first lesson with him. Like he's so theatrical about introducing the Cornish pixies. And then as they're all loose, he's like, you guys got it?
Yeah. The 11-year-old's got it. It's fine.
Yeah, literally.
The contrast between Lockhart and like Mad Eye lessons. It's so funny.
Fake Mad Eye, but
yeah, fake Mad Eye. A darn good fake though.
Yeah.
Wait, something I'll touch on when we get there. But yeah, it's so good. Kenneth Branagh is so hilarious. So hilarious. In fact, he gets like the only end credit scene in the franchise. If you don't know,
I didn't even know that until you posted.
Yeah, at the very
yeah.
end, he's just like, "Who am I?"
That's too funny.
It's so good. Dude, it blew my mind when I actually discovered that too. I was like, "Wait, Harry Potter."
There's gonna be a team, Harry. Get ready. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so Bonnie Wright as Ginny gets more screen time in this one, and I think this is Ginny's best performance. Like, I love Half-Blood Prince. Y'all know that. I love Ginny in the books. Bonnie Wright in the later films. It's funny because her acting gets worse throughout, as she gets older. In my opinion,
I won't deny it.
I think she's more subtle, but I mean,
I don't think it's her acting. I think, maybe a little bit, but I do think that there are certain scenes where they actually give her who Ginny is in the books, and I think she shines in those, and there are about 3 of them in the entire franchise.
I can name like 1 or 2, yeah.
But like, that's it. And she's really good in those scenes, like when she does the reducto curse, or when she yells "shut it" on the Quidditch pitch.
That's
like,
what I was gonna say. That one.
Glimpses of Ginny, but they eviscerated her character in the films, and I think how could she even act well? Like, I mean, we'll talk about it in Half-Blood Prince, but like some of the scenes they give her, like, they're so awkward to begin with on paper that it's like,
I agree.
I don't even know how you do that.
I'll be watching it. I'm like, has she always been that bad? Like, it's really weird.
I was watching. I was just like, she's really like laid back in terms of
what she's supposed to be. But granted, like, I understand, like, filmmaking is a creative medium. Like, okay, maybe this Ginny's supposed to be a bit more quieter. Okay, cool. But even then, if you're trying to take that approach, it's still not like good.
They're so the scenes for Ginny are just so awkward. I don't know who wrote them or why, but I mean, I know who wrote them.
It's close.
I don't speak his name, but like, why?
We'll get to it. But I think in Chamber of Secrets, though, she's excellent. Like, the way she's like talking to Harry in the chamber. I think, like, I feel for her a lot, especially when they reveal that she was the one doing all this stuff, and she had all this inner turmoil that we didn't see. And I'm like, okay, cool. I really love that. It's very sweet and kind. I love her in this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. There's a lot in Chamber of Secrets. I did want to touch on the basilisk, because I always remember, like, it was so cool. I think that was like the first Harry Potter I saw. I think that's my earliest theater memory I have of seeing the movie. I would specifically also remember like watching the basilisk stuff, and it was so cool. And it was funny because I was like going to look back, because I think it came out in 2002 when it released, and I was like, I wonder how these effects do hold up. And I was actually surprised, like, of course, a lot of it is CG, because yes, it's a giant serpent. I was specifically remembering like the close-up animatronic stuff, which I'll get to.
Yes, when he stabs it up in the
mouth. But when the CG stuff was going, I was like, this actually looks really good. Like, even now, like, I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, when they do like the close-ups where like he like literally like stabs it and stuff, I'm just like, that is real, and it looks amazing.
You're like, hold up, Jurassic Park, who is this? What's going on?
And like the way the editing is, I'm like, did Sam Raimi take over? This is amazing.
I love when he climbs up that thing. It's so intense when he climbs up with the sword, and he's just like slashing at it.
Even before that, I love when he's in the tunnels and he like throws the rock to after it was blinded.
Good stuff.
Stuff like that. It's so cool. But it's also funny, I feel like, because he goes pretty much the same direction. There's a fork in the tunnel, but like he goes pretty much the same direction. I'd be like, you're just gonna run out in the open and still around. I'd be so scared.
Me too. It reminded me like Return of the Jedi, when Luke gets thrown into the thing in Jabba's palace. Like, he tries to get out of the cage, but he's locked, and then the thing's right behind him. It's like, what do you do? It's just so very intense. But one of my favorite parts of the movie, though, is I just had to look it up. His name is Christian Coulson as Tom Riddle. I think this is like I don't want to say he's my favorite version of Tom Riddle, because we do get some great ones in Half-Blood Prince. But I think this one is just fantastic, as you see in the flashbacks, like as a charismatic kind of Tom Riddle, but also very dark. You see the underlying hints of darkness there. The way he spells out his name, that intensity to him, is like, I love it.
And it sucks
I will say, in terms of like this Tom Riddle, he might be my favorite Tom Riddle because I feel like, yeah, he does have that more charismatic, charming personality. But like every scene I'm seeing him in Half-Blood Prince, I'm like, this dude's just like underlying creepy. Like,
Yeah,
I love that though. Yeah.
he's like, hello,
My
sir.
favorite, and the little kid in Half-Blood Prince.
I was gonna get to that. The kid is
yeah.
so good.
Oh, yeah.
But I wish he would have was able to come. Well, he wanted to come back, but David Yates is like, you're too old for, because he was like pushing 30 by the time they got to
Was he really?
like Half-Blood Prince, and so
Moaning
it's like,
Myrtle's like 30.
okay, but
I've met her though. She looks like a child, like a small child.
That's true.
But anyways, so yeah, then he wanted to come back, but then I guess for whatever the flashbacks that they chose, it just didn't work out. But yeah, he's really good, and I think I love my favorite moment of him is, yes, in the chamber, but also the flashback of him and Dumbledore on the stairs when the body comes down, and Dumbledore just starts like talking to him, and I can't remember what the lines
I
are,
love
but
there was like a parallel like where he asked the same thing to Harry, like,
tell me.
yes.
I was like, ooh,
So good.
chills. There's so many comparisons between Harry and Tom throughout the series, and it's just like, imagine living with that, being compared to your parents' murderer like, all the time. It sucks, man. But it's still like really cool. That's one of like my favorite aspects of like Order of the Phoenix, when it's just like the similarity, like mind bridge stuff, which we'll get to. But
one last scene before we move on to Prisoner of Azkaban. We forgot about the duel scene. I love the duel scene.
I love Tom in this movie. I love his Draco shine on this one.
It's amazing. And isn't this the one where Draco goes on 2 instead of 3, and then they both get back, or Harry gets back up and just blasts him?
Yep.
I love that moment. It's such a Harry and Draco moment. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, the whole scene is great, because even with like hello,
Did we lose Evan?
I think we did for a second. He'll pop back. But with like even like further with the duel with Snape and Lockhart, it's so good just because they're going back and forth. Snape is like so ready to just duel. He was just like already in his stance. It's so fun. And then even to the point where like they were gonna have like Harry and Ron go up, and he's like, wait, Malfoy. So great. It's so perfect. Yeah, it's so fun. And just like even the snake stuff when they like first do like the parcel tongue. Every time, even like now, because I forgot like the next scene, when the dude's just like, "What are you playing at?" And I'm just like, "He just saved you, jerk." But
yeah.
But then it's like the next scene, it's like, "Oh wait, that's right. Other people don't do this." But still, I want to I don't want to like move to the next film before Evan gets back.
I know. I'm like trying to think of another thing to bring up.
I mean, there's a lot in Chamber of Secrets. Like we could keep pulling.
Okay, this is like random and not really film related, but I was on TikTok because Draco Talk is a big thing now.
Yeah.
And I saw like a theory that people had that I actually had never thought of and I really liked. You know, at the beginning of the film when Tom rips that page out of the book and puts it in his pocket, and then people were thinking that Tom, or I guess Draco, was actually the one that was like sent Dobby to help Harry because it's his house elf, and that he was the one that gave Hermione the page because Hermione would never rip a page out of a book, and it's never actually stated how she gets that page.
I think
it's so random, and it like, but I just like, I kind of like that because I was like, that was such a weird film choice for that random scene to be in there that's not in the books.
That's interesting.
I do like that a lot. I do like that a lot because I feel like there's a lot of like seeds planted for like a good guy Draco to come out by the finale. Sure. And yeah, I was watching like we'll get there with Deathly Hallows 2, but I was watching, which is also the second shortest film, which I feel like you could have gave at least 20 more minutes like the other one.
Of course it was.
But yeah, no, I was watching, I was just like, man, like there's a lot of moments where Draco is like doesn't want to do this, obviously. And then like even when he gets like Harry saves him out of the room requirement from burning, like I see them both on the same broom, and I'm just like, how cool of a team up would this be moving in the following scenes, and it doesn't happen, they just run away.
He deserved a redemption arc. He did.
Well, we have the deleted scene, but
yeah,
we have an unedited version.
But I also do think that Tom's performance gave him a lot more humanity than he had in the books, which I really, really enjoy about that performance. But I do wish that Draco had gotten that. I think he deserved the redemption arc. Hi, Evan.
Back.
Hey, Evan. We all stand Draco Malfoy. Do you?
I don't stand it. I stand what he could have been, and the fact that he deserves a redemption arc.
Oh yeah, there was that deleted scene of him like throwing the wand in the later films is great. I think he deserved a redemption arc, but we do get his best performance as Tom Felton as Draco in Half-Blood Prince, so it's pretty great.
I agree.
Pretty great. Are we still on Chambers? Are we on Prisoners?
Yeah, we're kind of waiting.
Yeah, we're gonna move now because we want to.
Thank you. You didn't have to do all of that.
Would you have let me heard the end of it?
Probably not.
No.
You got
On to the best film of the franchise.
It's tied for best, in my opinion. Yes.
Oh, I would also pitch the best of the Williams scores.
Yeah.
Ooh, also true. I like that. Other than maybe
Window of the Past, beautiful. There's amazing when they're standing on the bridge. Him and Ramus. Amazing.
It's my favorite looking of the franchise for sure.
Yes.
I mean, I like cold atmosphere anyway, but like just from like the train scene with the Dementor is phenomenal. Just that introduction.
One of my favorite. This is really specific. Is when right after the Dementor comes in, Lupin saves him, and then he eats a chocolate, and it zooms in on Harry leaning up against the window. And it goes into his eye, and it cuts to the puddle of the carriages going, and I'm just like, "That's sick. My guy. Yeah. That's it."
It's so good, and then just with the like choir going as well. I'm just like, this is cinema at its finest.
I love the score under the Buckbeak flight as well.
Oh, perfect!
The drums amazing. So good.
Yeah. I was telling Emma the other day, like I love that scene so much that like the first time I learned how to ride a bike, I literally like replicated that scene of flying Buckbeak. Like I was like, whoa, because it's so good, man.
Yeah, I started tearing up this time around. I was like, holy crap, this scene is very powerful.
It's my second time crying of the franchise.
second of many.
First film that we get so much. Like we get all the new characters that a lot of people love, like Lupin and Sirius, and we get the Marauders map, and we get Buckbeak, and like I think that all contributes to it. But then Cuarón's filmmaking is just like the colors that he uses and the visuals.
He's the best part of this entire franchise. I think it's safe to say, like the best addition.
Come back,
man's a master.
Yeah. I mean, he's the best filmmaker. He establishes, like I was saying earlier, in terms of Hogwarts. Like Hogwarts is a character in this movie. Like it's a full-blown character. We see different layouts that we haven't really seen before. We see different connective tissue that we haven't really seen before in this one. The transitions, like we see that through some of the aerial bird shots. Like the bird shots aren't just there. It's like, oh, it's a cool
shot.
The
seasons in this movie,
great.
The tree,
with the Whomping Willow.
Whomping Willow CGI, which is great. Like I'm usually not a fan of going from like practical to CGI, but the CGI Willow works perfectly in this movie for what it serves for this movie. And
with the seasons, it's basically like Halloween and Christmas film. Like it works for everything. It's just
totally. Yeah. Like the first ones are like, oh, this is cool Hogwarts. They're discovering Hogwarts. They're seeing kind of that darker layer in the Chamber of Secrets, but also in the third one, this is where the darkness fully becomes visual. It fully becomes here. And it's so interesting. I'm like, oh,
one of my favorite scenes in this movie is Harry walking around at night for the first time when he sees Wormtail on the map. And the paintings are getting mad at him because he's using the light. And they turn that light off, boy.
The whole scene with Snape is great. And then like after they leave, they like now they turn into Snape with the light. And it's like, are you deaf?
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about this
dramatic.
movie.
He's like,
you're just like.
That's one thing I love about this movie. The paintings feel more alive, like just like Hogwarts does. The paintings, the first two movies, the paintings are all like proper and prim. It's like, okay, you may enter. But now they're like alive and cranky.
It was a cool moment when like all the paintings were like shaken up because like they said Sirius broke into the castle or something.
Yeah.
I didn't notice, but like walking through like all of like the whole wall of the paintings was just like this big giraffe, and I was like, oh my god.
Yes,
so
it goes up like 5 paintings. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love that they like converge. It's great.
This is also the first film that we get them in plain clothes as well, and I love the costume.
I love that.
Yeah. And like it's the first one where we get them as humans too. Like one of my favorite scenes is the one where they're all in the bedroom eating the flavor beans or whatever.
Yeah.
And like the steam and the lion and like did you see everyone bonding? I love that too.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And that's like right from initially like the get-go too, which is great. Just like further establishing like the friendships and everything. And touch on side characters too. Going through the franchise, really enjoyed Neville. The best glow up of the franchise.
Yeah, definitely.
But like Emma alluded to, Lupin and Sirius are the beating heart of this entire movie. The thing I love about this movie, the movie is a coming of age, or Harry Potter as a series is a coming of age series, but this movie in particular is like a coming of age within a coming of age because he's coming into his own more as a character. And he becomes like he's more lonely, and he's not like blatantly lonely. Like he's not saying like in later films, I think Order of the Phoenix or something. He's like, I'm lonely. It's like, we get it, you're lonely, Harry. But this one, he's lonely, but like you see it through like the visuals, like when Hagrid says like, who wants to ride Buckbeak, and everybody moves besides him, and then the frame just zooms in on Harry, and he's like, oh, he's really alone there. And then the whole Buckbeak like freedoms thing, it just rings more true in that sense. But then Harry gets left alone on these vacations or on these field trips as well.
The clock shots, and it's like going back and
the
forth,
clock
just
shots,
standing there.
It's so perfect. And then when there's one shot when he's leaning on his bed and he's so sad and alone, but then zooms in on James and Lily in the photo. I'm like, oh, these shots are they're perfect. They're like visualizing, telling us that he's lonely, but it's just not so blatant. But Karan is such
I think
a
one of my favorite
filmmaker.
Openings too is the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes,
Simply because we zoom through the window, he's under the covers, and Vernon keeps coming up and checking, and then
I also love that might be my favorite opening logo shot with the Warner Brothers because like it's illuminating behind it.
Yes.
Pulsing. It's so
then
good.
the sister of Vernon comes and she's like vicious with him, and I think,
oh my god,
I think if like the evolution of like Daniel Radcliffe of like coming into his own as an actor, this is like his first step up.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of him acting, and I think for that reason it's one of my favorite performances of his, and so good. And I love especially with Ramis too, of all the scenes of them together and the training.
Perfect.
Or like the scene of finding out like when he like sneaks down with the rest of his friends, and then he finds out that Sirius was his parents' friend, but also was aided in the murder. You think at the time. I mean, that whole thing is great. Just the whole like Sirius plot is phenomenal the way it unfolds. Like from the beginning when like Arthur pulls him aside, which is all one take, by the way. It's
I love that take. Yeah.
Wait,
I think I watched. They're like
Arthur
right,
Weasley
like,
pulls him aside.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And
like,
the
I think
newspaper comes up on the wall, and you're like,
they do like I think I watched like a whole video essay on the blocking of that scene because it's like the way it like moves from like pillar to pillar. It's so good. One take. But yeah, when like the whole serious stuff like unfolds, another part where I'm tearing up because I know where things go is just like when Sirius is like offering Harry a place to live away from the Dursleys. I'm just like, oh, I need it. It's this existing family. I need it. But then Lupin has to turn. I'm like, damn it. And just like all that stuff. But also, one of my favorite factors of any type of film.
Time travel.
Time travel. My favorite.
They do it so well here. So well.
I love
Dumbledore
is so funny with this. Dumbledore like sitting and like stalling him is one of my favorite little details.
Yeah, this is Gambit's first Dumbledore too. Gambit and Dumbledore, his first showcase, and he kills it. He kills it here. I love him in this one.
And like when they're like trying to like sneak Buckbeak away, and he's just like, "Oh, look at the fields here and the sky. Like, you got some tea? I could use a brandy." Like all that stuff. And then when they get back by the end of it and they succeed, and he's just like, "Did what? Good night."
Yes, so perfect.
Yeah.
So good. Oh my God, this.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier in terms of Dumbledore's quirkiness. Like he was like, "Good night." Like I have no idea what you're talking about. Like I can't really see Richard Harris kind of doing that.
Also,
but
his two monologues in this movie. One of them is the opening grand hall, or the Great Hall scene with the candle, where he's like, that scene lives in my head rent free. I think about that scene every single day of him like putting out the candle and then like a little light, and then just the candle whooshes back to life. I'm like, yes. And the other scenes when they're all in the Great Hall sleeping, and he's talking about dreams, and you see the sky of the Great Hall, and he's talking about Harry sleeping, and Harry's really awake, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I love like all of the points where like Hermione pops up out of nowhere because she's time traveling, and every time Ron's just like, "When did you get here?" My favorite one when he was just like, "Did you even see her come in?" Like he just gets angry.
This is also the first one we get divination, and I love how that develops as well. And Trelawney's character, like Emma Thompson, is fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah.
It's so good. I don't know. I don't think they ever like outright explain it, but like when she just kind of like gets that like possession in that point when Harry's returning the ball.
It terrified me as a child.
Me too. I was like,
"Hey, voice is so scary."
Yeah,
and then she,
yeah.
And she snaps out of it like nothing happened, and Harry's just like
something very dark is gonna happen to you. I'm like, yo, step back. Like, yo, what's going on?
When she
sees prophecies in her life, and that was the second one.
When she first sees the what's the symbol called that she sees the
grim,
the grim. She's like, oh!
Can we talk about that Ron moment though? Also, when he's reading the cup, like so good. Like you're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it. Like,
that's
also a really good scene.
Every Harry Potter film. It's so actually I have a book question.
Go for it.
In regards to the time turtle, do they explain where that goes? Like what happens to it after Prisoner of Azkaban, or
she returns it to the Ministry. She had to get it from the like McGonagall had to write letters for her to get it.
Yeah, I think she just takes less classes after this one.
And also think about how dangerous it would have been outside that closed situation. Like if like one little thing, I mean, it's so miraculous that they pull it off here, but if they like obviously something's getting wrong, they continue to use it and just be bad. I actually
think that it's kind of like the time travel rule of like the predestined, just like it's gonna happen already. And but I always initially when I watched, I always thought like they add a new thing by saving Buckbeak, but really when I looked back like the first time like they watched like Buckbeak's execution, it's still off frame and you don't see it. So he probably wasn't there already, which is fascinating because they're too busy with all the serious stuff to even like check back on that later because they wake up in hospital later, so they wouldn't really even know. That's
my favorite kind of time travel where it's like nothing really changes. It's kind of like in Star Wars Rebels with the World Between Worlds thing. It's like they're not really time traveling. What's happened always was going to happen. Kind of thing is very fascinating. But yeah, this movie is just phenomenal.
We got to talk about quickly the Patronus at the end where he's like, my father's coming, my dad's coming, you'll see right there, and then he goes out there. Oh my God, me every Halloween for like 5 years after that scene. I was out there on the streets casting my spell at the moon. Oh my God.
It's so beautiful and heartbreaking, but also powerful. Just like how powerful this 13-year-old boy is, man.
The soul leaving Sirius, and you're just like, oh my God.
Gosh. that shot of like the light coming out. Oh.
And the score that they put into like the whole sequence is just beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Oh yes.
But I think my favorite sequence in this movie, which is funny because like this is a great adaptation of the book, but there's a lot of scenes missing from the scene though. But I'm talking about the shack scene where Harry confronts Sirius, or he confronts Wormtail, and then Sirius comes in, and then Lupin comes in, and then Snape comes in. In the book,
it's so layered.
It's so layered. Like in the books, there's so much exposition about like Voldemort, the Death Eaters. Like there's so much like that's told to us that's not really told. We get that told in later movies. But I'm fine with it because the acting in that scene is phenomenal.
Gives everything you need.
Yeah, it's my
Especially
favorite
between
scene in the
Sirius,
entire
the
movie.
the hug when they first confront each other.
It's
It
so
tells you
good.
everything in the moment.
It's so like frantic, and it's like, oh, and it's like, I've been waiting for 12 years. Like, it's so frantic and tense, and you can just
I
feel
love
like
and just like the buildup of just like the reveals of just like the actual allegiances, and it's like, no, we need your rat. All the first three films, I'm just like this fucking rat, man. Like,
yeah, I'm just like, I had to rewatch that scene like 2 times. I watched it, I was like mouth open, then I rewinded. I'm like, it's just so good. It's like
And
the
he's
acting
so
is
creepy.
phenomenal.
That actor is
Oh,
so
yeah. I see him in
Oh,
anything.
yes.
I see him in anything. I'm just like, no, you're Wormtail.
No, yeah,
I'm sorry.
you know.
Like, oh, it creeped me out as a kid for sure. But
I think
I agree.
also
Like, it's one of my favorite adaptations. Because personally, like I was telling Nathan this off camera before, I was really trying to watch these films from a film making perspective for you guys, as opposed to a fan perspective, which is where I come from, and it was really hard for me to separate that. But for this one, like, because most of my issues stem from adaptation, I think this one they left things out, but I didn't mind what they left out. Like the way Cuarón did it and the way the script was written was just, they put in everything that they needed to put in. Like, I could get really nitpicky with it, like one or two things, but for me, it's just absolutely perfect the way that they did it.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, my friends and I used to have complaints about that scene because they're like, they didn't reveal to Harry enough information and all this stuff, and I'm like,
I think they revealed enough that they did. The only complaint I have with that scene is that all three of them were supposed to stun Snape, which is a very
oh
yeah.
But
I thought it was a cool
Hermione
reveal.
and Ron in this one, like they give Ron like a little bit too much comedic for me in this one, just a tiny bit. But that's me like being really nitpicky. Like,
yeah, I could be nitpicky about it too. About I get it's always, I guess we're a lot. I'll push back on some of the like, I guess from your perspective of like, oh, they didn't include this. I need to, because I haven't reread the books in so long that I can't really speak to the differences. But at the same time, I'm like, I know where Harry Potter goes when they put too much information, and it's this Fantastic Beasts, the stupid tomb scene where they're sitting there with the babies being switched, and it is horrible. And so if you can have less information
on Fantastic Beasts, though, that's the whole.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah. Granted, like, the whole problem is not that scene.
I went to film school. Like, I understand that it's a completely different medium, and you can't include everything. And I love reading and I love film. So there are some adaptations that I watch and I'm like, oh, you left out a couple things, but you left out things that is specific to the reader experience, that if you read the book, you're enhanced, but it doesn't deter from what you're watching on screen.
Yeah, it's so tricky.
In the later films, things deter. But like in this one, I think it was a perfect adaptation, and they left out things, but I don't mind what they left out.
This is the perfect Harry Potter movie. I think we all can agree on that. Like, I think it's probably the most rewatchable. It's like the best. You could just put this on at any time and be instantly, even without the first two movies, you can be instantly like, you could just pick it up and just be like so invested in the journey already. It's crazy how perfect it does its job for this whole series.
Oh wait, I wanted to touch on like the new look of Quidditch, because it's interesting, like the new like set gear and stuff, and like it's basically like how it's gonna start looking furthermore. I actually think this might be my favorite looking Quidditch match because I love rain. That's just me. But I was also like having a moment where like when Harry like flies like way up into the sky. I was thinking about that like with every Quidditch match I watched, and I'm just like, is there a form of out of bounds? Number one, and number two,
the snitch just going up to space, like.
but also, like,
you better get it.
I think that's also a point I noticed, like from like the opening of Goblet of Fire, when like they're going into like that like World Cup match, and they were like going on about. Like, I think Draco was making fun of like how they have to go to the very top, and I'm just like, that's probably your best seat if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and that's what's funny about it too. Is like,
I hate
we have the ministers.
Anyway.
If it rains, you'll be the first.
I wanted to see it play out, and they didn't.
We'll get to Goblet because I have some thoughts. But
I'm sure we'll do. This is my favorite Quidditch match in the books as well. Like BOA is one of my favorite books, and it's not adapting identically. I like how they did it in the films, but it's also a really
resto moment.
Yeah.
And the vignetting of the frame is like.
It's so
like
good.
drinks.
Yeah, I love Kron's fade ins and outs like throughout. It's just like it's so beautiful.
Beautiful. But yeah, I just love. I can't say enough praise for Lupin and Sirius in this movie. It's like this is where they get the most to do, especially Lupin compared to the later movies.
Yes.
Like Lupin gets the most to do. There's so much sentiment between him and Harry in these scenes. Sentiment with the underlying bits of darkness because Lupin's a freaking werewolf in this movie.
Oh, the Snape scene, guys. We got to mention where he gives
where he
the
blocks himself?
lesson on the werewolves and the animagus, where he comes in and he shuts the blinds. And Hermione's like figured it out by that point, but it's such a good scene. And then they're like, "But sir, it's Quidditch this weekend." And he's like, 7 pages of parchment.
Then you better take care not to injure yourself. Like, oh my god! Yeah. And just the way he like multiple times said, "Turn to page 394."
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good.
So good. And even the lighting in that scene too, with the projector going off and all of this.
Yeah, it's like an old school. You know what's funny? Okay, weird tangent, real quick before we move on. I was thinking about the existence of cameras in this universe because, especially in like Order of the Phoenix and like Half-Blood Prince and all the Rita Skeeter stuff, when they're taking pictures, I'm like, okay, so does it take a picture and then they like print it on the newspaper and then like it reacts and comes alive? I'm like, how does that transfer, or is it just
that was something I was thinking about in like I was watching Half-Blood Prince and like a Harry and Slughorn take a photo and Slughorn is like super still and I'm just like this is gonna be a boring photo.
And also, do movies exist in this universe? Because if they do,
that's a good question.
That would be insane for like effects and stuff. Like what would like
my god
effects look like? Because
they were well ahead of the 3D game. They were doing 3D in probably like the 40s.
This is what I think. This is what I think about. I'm just like,
that's true. I never thought about that. That would be interesting.
Make that movie, man.
Because photos exist, and obviously, a version of moving images exist. We don't know if it's from the still camera or something else.
They're already ahead in the photography, so they're probably way ahead in the film department if they have film.
It was the OG boomerang for Instagram was the just like Tom Riddle's diary is Snapchat.
Can we take a left turn from the Department of Mysteries and head over to the Department of Film? I want to see what that looks like. I want to see that office compared to what Umbridge's office looks like. I think that'd be.
Oh yeah, that would be really cool. Yeah.
I mean, that's funny, but then also at the same time, they're listening to like old timey radios in their common rooms. So I know what they're on.
Okay, weird. Okay, Rand, sorry, I'm thinking of like 7,000 things. One last question before we move on. This is a book question. What happens to Umbridge? Okay, this is later, but like, what happens to Umbridge when she gets carried off in Order of the Phoenix? How does she get back to become, and then just like back at the Ministry? I'm like, they just leave her like out in the woods as just like to taunt her?
I would have explained that, and it bugged me because I thought that she died, and I would have that she died. But
they're so angry.
she literally just shows up like in the films, like,
and she's just standing there by the fountain. And I'm like, what? How did you get that?
I don't know. It's one of my biggest annoyances because I fucking hate her. I think everyone hates her, but
and like she had no wand, so she couldn't like I don't think she had a wand there. Like she couldn't apparate out of there because it also was still in the grounds.
I think the Centaurs must have been lenient. I have no idea. I can't imagine that they would be, but
we need that's how it should have ended. See it like and she's just in the woods laying on her back. Maybe she drank unicorn blood and is immortal.
Oh God, please no.
No more.
Anyway,
not
sorry
presenting Umbridge and Cursed Child. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
Don't
mention. Don't say Cursed Child in this podcast.
I bought that book. I still have not read it, and I've just been told mixed things, and I just don't know if I want to read it.
You don't need to.
I've watched videos of people like improving the story in like custom stage plays, and that goes well.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Otherwise, yeah.
But yeah, I think to end Prisoner of Azkaban, I think this is a perfect tone, perfect direction, perfect cinematography. It's like this gives me everything I wanted in the Harry Potter universe. Like it gives the director like his own personal take on the franchise. Harry gets a great arc. Hermione gets a great arc. All these characters get great arcs. It really sets the franchise like 2 steps ahead. And then we lead into Goblet of Fire, where it's like, now lean back.
We're all friends on this one. We can all agree on this film.
Until we move forward.
Goblet of Fire. Getting into Goblet of Fire, it's very funny because this seems to be the one they play the most, like on ABC. Like they play Goblet of Fire all the time, at least in my point of view. Now I can see why. It's like a lot
of people like this movie, and anyone
they do
talk to
a lot.
Like a casual
fan
is like,
when you talk
Goblet
to people,
of Fire is the best one.
Or they hate it. They love it or they hate it. I feel like this is the one film where it's really divided.
And I'm in the middle. Like, I don't think this is a bad movie. And I don't think any film in this franchise is a bad movie. I think this franchise is consistently, like, at least pretty good. And this is the pretty good one. Because I think, like, this is the most bombastic Harry Potter film. And
it's angsty. It's
not
so
in a great way.
The haircuts,
rightfully so. They are the prime age.
Everybody starts to like realize that there's other people. Like, oh my god, that's a girl over there. Like, it's totally like that movie.
That is some of the most hilarious stuff. And Harry's just like, why do they have to travel in packs? Like,
I love that line.
He's like, I'd rather take the dragon, man.
Yeah, and I think we also forget because the actors, like, their characters are 15 here. Like, they're literally just discovering girls for the first time and like how to ask people out. And I think they did that really well in this one.
I think it was
like the tournament is just so good.
I love the tournament sets. Those tournament designs, like the challenges for each one are very, very, very well done.
I'm amazed. Like, they lead off with dragons. Like, that's the very first.
I know, right? I guess you want to.
I thought you were making a pun. I thought you were saying amazed, and I was like, "Wow, did you really just weave that?"
I would. I don't put it past me. I would, but no. But honestly, just in the flow of the story, I think that serves like even better because like the maze is so important to where things go. Also, I love Cedric. He is great.
Robert Pattinson is. You could say Robert Pattinson kills it here because he dies. Tragic.
He's really good, Cedric, though. I think the one thing across the board is their casting. It's never once wrong, at least in my opinion. Like, it's beyond perfect. And
who plays his father in this movie? Because his father is phenomenal in this.
He's great
too.
Yeah.
And he's so supportive all throughout. Like, he's just like, good job, son.
His acting is just incredible.
Just
like,
really building it up before the
tragedy. I think it has to be
Echo with the Porky and everything. It was just super fun.
I love. Okay, so this is my thing with Goblet of Fire. The beginning's great, and the end is great. The middle just loses me, and it doesn't lose me. I just think it's not as good as the really beginning and the really end. I just think it's kind of Harry Potter.
I can see where you're coming from. I think coming off of Quran, he captured the essence of a 13-year-old boys and girls so well in Prisoner of Azkaban. But the romance, like the teenage aspect of this movie is so over-exaggerated. I think in terms of the acting and the plot.
In my opinion,
this whole
film
is
a confused movie.
It's very over-exaggerated. Like, what we love about Harry Potter is the personal scenes. There's like zero quiet scenes in this movie. This movie is so freaking loud from the very beginning.
Skywalker
I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't go that far. But it's like this movie is so loud and fast and quick pace. There's so many things. There's so many like connections. Like one thing off the bat is like when in the middle of the movie, Ron and Hermione have that fight, and she's like pissed off at Ron. The next scene, they're in the library, and it's like, oh, we're cool again. I'm like, where's that whole scene where you guys like make up? Like,
I'll also say, I really I'm not a fan of Ron for like half the movie when he's just angry at Harry. I'm just like,
it's so drawn out, like, and I can't remember specifically because Goblet of Fire is a pretty lengthy book, if I remember right. So I'm sure that's fleshed out better in terms of them, like. And it's like half a year. I'm like, we're really hanging on this conflict for like 6 months of like talking about the thing.
Yeah, like, dude, I didn't put my freaking name in the Goblet of Fire. Why are you mad at me? Like, calm the heck down.
Is our fourth year of BS we're dealing with, and you think?
Yeah.
Fred and George couldn't do it. How did I? Explain it. I'm so inexperienced.
There are certain things that I really love about this, but I'll agree. The middle is a little convoluted. for me, again, it stems from adaptation. Like there's certain things they left out that I really didn't enjoy, but it's not one of my least favorite films. I think the tournament stuff and the different schools kind of balance it out a little bit for me. I like the different aspects that they're bringing into that, but I definitely see your point in terms of the middle being a little bit choppy and the romances being a little bit off. So.
All over the place.
Yeah, it's not like the lowest on my list. It is lower.
Yeah,
but
it's
not
like
the lowest.
middle of the road.
It's
for
in the
me.
middle. It's in the middle.
It's in the middle.
Yeah.
I fully agree. Yeah.
And I will say, like, I think it's a visually entertaining film that just like keeps me intrigued, because I think the whole film looks very nice. And I think like the whole like tournament stuff is like great action too. Also to throw out there, I just to feel outcry for Draco. I'm pretty sure they shot a lot of ballroom stuff with him that they didn't use at all.
I could totally see it.
Yeah, there's like behind the scenes stuff with like Tom like all dressed up in his like ball robes, and like none of it was used. Like, why?
Tragic.
We got. I also saw again from Draco Talk. There was 30 minutes for him over the course of the entire franchise, which does not feel real to me.
That's weird.
Because crazy. Tom brings that character to life so well. Yeah. But that is true, and I was wow.
And I can hardly like really even like think of many scenes with him in Goblet of Fire. I think I remember like the like World Cup game at the very beginning. Otherwise, like he's shouting in the stands for Chrome.
Which, FYI, in the books, they're in the same box. Just gonna put that out there.
I was able to see
that. There's also the scene where he gets in the fight with Mad-Eye Moody, or fake Mad-Eye.
Yeah,
Moody.
the whole rat scene. We should talk about Mad-Eye.
Sure. I mean, Mad-Eye's great in this. I think he's really good.
As a child, that tongue thing that what's his face does creeped the fuck out.
David Tennant. Yeah.
Ooh, he was so good in that, and
David Tennant's great. I don't love the character in this movie, but I think he portrays him in a really great way.
I could always use more David Tennant because
his story is a lot less than what it is.
They destroyed his character arc from the books.
They did.
I mean, yeah, it's very.
He put it his house elf to begin with, which is like half of the arc. So.
Yeah. Something that I noticed, I had never picked up on this before, is the whole after the lake scene, the lake trial. They're walking up, and the minister or whatever pulls Harry aside, and then Mad-Eye goes over, is like trying to recruit for a summer internship, and I wasn't thinking like it's actually the son, and then like he's taunting him about that, and he like freezes in that moment, and I'm like, oh my god, I never realized
he
that
freezes because he sees like the tongue tick happen.
That's the thing. Yeah.
He does the tongue thing.
Yeah, that does it.
Yeah, that's why he freezes. Like, that's my son.
Yeah,
and that's why Junior kills his dad, because he found him out. He's like, I gotta kill him.
Yeah, that's what I just thought. Yeah. I knew that he figured out that it was him, but I didn't think it was I thought it was just like what he was saying about the ministry or whatever that gave it away.
The whole flashback
that's
too.
Cool.
The whole like flashback for like Dumbledore's memory was also like when they first like introduced the whole concept of like viewing the memory stuff. Like I think is really cool. Harry is always falling into flashbacks physically. But it was a whole great setup, and it's cool like to see like the inner workings of the ministry like starting out, just like
I love that set of like the cage in the middle, like it's so barbaric.
They're like literally like right there like twisting all the like spears in. Like, oh god,
like, what if he like did a cough? He's like, oh shit. Just
I would be like, if I get outraged, I'm gonna die. Like,
and I like that we get a glimpse of the real Mad-Eye in that too, because we obviously don't get to see a lot of him as well. So
yeah. Which is funny when we get to like the future movies. I'm like, okay, the one I got attached to is not the same person. So
I know it's pretty tragic.
Okay. I think his best scene, if we're talking about him, is the classroom scene with the curses.
I was just about to say that.
I was
best
talking
scene in the
with
entire movie.
I was talking with them both. Evan was like, "You sadist." No, like the whole shot when like he kills the spider, and then like it rack focuses back to Harry, like that ominous tone.
The foreshadowing of death.
Yeah, that whole scene is just directed so well. You see the fear in Neville's face. You see the like.
Oh my god.
The pain he's going through.
Hermione's like, stop it.
It's so good. Like the whole classroom's on edge. You're like, oh gosh, like this is the only film or only scene in the film where the characters get time to breathe and actually have like some kind of dialogue. with one another without something loud going on in the background. And then like Neville goes on the doors on the steps. Then he looks at the mosaic, and the mosaic is like crying a little bit. I'm like,
I love it.
Perfect! Like that's a fantastic
Great
scene. Everything else in the movie is just so fast, freaking paced, so annoying. But yeah, this is a solid entry. The third act with the maze. Again, the maze got kind of butchered from the book to movie.
Did it? Okay.
There's a lot of like monsters and stuff.
I didn't mind that, to be honest, though. Like,
Me
I think
neither.
what they took out was okay.
Yeah, the third act is so tense.
What really annoys me about this film is that they start making Neville and Dobby's characters combined in this one, which they do throughout the later films.
Yeah, Dobby was supposed to be in this.
Because I love the house elves and they don't get enough screen time. But that's like my only real issue with this film.
Yeah, Dobby was supposed to be in this and the Order of Phoenix, I think, too, right?
Yeah, Order of Phoenix.
Yeah.
I love. Regardless, I love by the time we get to the port key, I think Ralph Fiennes just absolutely literally comes to life here, and
yeah, that was
very
a great
good.
Ending, yeah,
so good. Oh well, okay. Like leading up to that too, like when Harry and Cedric, like when Harry saves Cedric, was a great moment, and then like they're just like, all right, you take it, together. I was like, it's so cool, but I'm just like, don't do it.
so sad. It's so heartbreaking. Yeah.
And then right when they get there too, and just teleport, I'm just like, get back now. Like,
he's like, I've been here before. I can't remember what he says.
Yeah. And it happened so fast when Wormtail goes out, like instantly takes him out, and there's no stopping it. And then like right away, it's like no time to mourn. Harry gets like caught up. And then they do the whole like ritual, and just the way like Voldemort is like birthed again is insane. And then when it just like straight to like it reveals like Ralph Fiennes, which is great, like makeup and effect mix, which is great. And then like, when the eyes like go from like snake,
his hand, when that shot of his hands like on his head, I can't explain it, but it still creeps me out to this day. It's just like it's such a physical performance.
I've never felt
just the way he walks around the. He dances around the graveyard. He like walks.
He's like, I have legs again.
That's so I love.
I've never felt more repulsed in this franchise than when he puts his foot on Cedric's face. I was like, oh god, it's so gross.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah,
that's what I like about Ralph Fiennes' performance here. There was an interview where he was saying, like, in Goblet of Fire, he wanted to make it look like Voldemort was just like being in the physical form for the first time in a long time. So that's why he's like sliding across everywhere. The unfortunate part about that is like they use that same performance in every other entry, and Voldemort just seems a bit more goofier as time goes on because of that. Because he's also just like he's sliding around too much. He's cracking jokes in Order of Phoenix. I'm like, it's not the best. But I think this is Ralph Fiennes' best work here.
His iconic laugh in Deathly Hallows too. But we'll get there.
I think Ralph Fiennes does his like best work in Goblet of Fire. The way he comes out, the way he just commands like some kind of dark presence in that scene. The way he's taking off everybody's mask, yelling at them. I felt truly frightened in that scene compared to other scenes later on. I just love
the way it was shot. It was really good. The clothes
and when they like lock spells for the first time, which is so good. And then like the spirits come out as Cedric, Lily James, and the groundskeeper. Okay, but
the groundskeeper.
That's so weird.
It's a lot more predominant in the books. They don't really explain it here, but yeah.
Is he a wizarding groundskeeper, or is he just a muggle?
No.
He's a muggle. No, but Tom Riddle's story is a lot more comprehensive in this book. It's when we really start to learn about Voldemort's backstory.
I figure it was just a sense of like this, like the spirits that this one killed or something.
It's the last ones. Yeah. I
figured. Yeah. Which is fine. It's funny because I see these important people. I'm just like, groundskeeper Willie's over here.
He's like, hey Harry, we'll distract him for you, sure.
He's like, what's happening?
But before we get to Order of the Phoenix, by far my favorite and I think best moment just from filmmaking and everything is
I
when
know
they
where you're
get back
going.
and he's
Yeah.
on top of Cedric and
Oh.
the Hogwarts theme starts playing and
Da,
Harry's
da,
just,
da,
oh
da.
my god.
And then his dad scream and
That's
Oh.
my boy.
It's guttural.
It's the whole slow realization of the whole crowd, just like slow.
Yeah.
And Harry won't get pulled away. It's
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking.
The first
Great acting from
this is
Daniel.
the first brush of death up close in the series. You know, he's only heard, you know, your parents are murdered, you're like this murderer up until this point, and this is the first point, and then you get to the Great Hall, and I still love that. I really like Michael Gambon's monologue there about
So
the
good.
Ministry doesn't want me to tell you this, but a murderer is out there, and you know,
Yeah, to not
it
tell
really
you would be an
sets up
insult
the
to
next
his
movie
memory.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so good.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. Even like another moment just back at the graveyard when like Voldemort's calling Harry out, and then he just starts getting like real angry because like this is the murderer. This is, and he just goes to confront, and that's when like they lock the spell, and it's so good. The whole finale I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
yeah, it's super fast paced. It's really well done.
Yeah, I
When
think it's
everybody
easy
leaves
to
the
watch
castle is
film.
good too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool dragons. But
oh,
yeah.
and real quick, Crumb in this movie, his line delivery is so like it's bad, but it's funny too because it works for the character
Yeah.
in a way. It's like when they're getting their photos taken, and Crumb's like, "What are you doing in here?" I'm like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah,
he's like,
I
"You
think
should
that's
get
why-
out of
It's an
here."
interesting actor and character, honestly. Like I think I do think it works for the character, but it's pretty funny. Like
It's
I
pretty
think that's
funny.
why they had.
yeah.
I think that's why they had Hermione say later. He doesn't really talk that much. He's more.
Yeah.
yeah, it's literally his character. I love how they did both the schools. I think they were done really well.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flora Delacour.
Mhm.
But yeah, when the movie ended, it said like directed by Mike Newell. I'm like, who the frick is Mike Newell?
I know.
What else has
He
he
hasn't really
done? I'm
anything.
curious.
Mike Newell? No wonder this is like one of the middle of the road movies because you come off from Alfonso Cuarón, like, and he put his own into that movie, Prisoner of Azkaban, and then Mike Newell comes in. It's just like, oh, it's a you don't really see identity in this movie. It's just like a fast-paced, action-packed movie. You get your 3 major set pieces. You get a cool dance. Not that many character beats.
I just remember because I tweeted out the other day. It's just like Harry is warning Cedric, like, okay, we got dragons coming up, and then when after that, Cedric's just like, riddle me this, Batman, like, just tell me, man.
Mike
I'm like,
Newell
what the heck,
directed Prince
Cedric?
of Persia. Oh my god.
Oof.
Oh,
That's rough.
But he has Jake Gyllenhaal's number, so oof. Man, that is
who would you put Jake Gyllenhaal has in Harry Potter? I wonder.
Jake Gyllenhaal is Cedric. No.
I think you would have to be what's the guys from Deathly Hallows Part 1, the like the little bad guys in the woods, the Snatchers. I think he has to be like he has to be an eccentric snatcher running around the
I
woods,
can see Jake doing that.
looking absolutely homeless with nobody with him, and just like him just sitting by a campfire, just roasting a marshmallow, just doing nothing, and we just go up on his character.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, to that point, I think wasn't this like, I think this was like the first film that didn't even like open up on the Dursleys or like really showcase them.
Goblet of Fire?
I think it does.
Yeah,
did it open?
Memory.
Yeah,
no,
Harry.
it just
he said Dursley's.
Harry's already.
Yeah. Dursley.
I
I
think
thought you
it's
meant Weasley's. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yes. Okay. So that was interesting. I found, but then we have to go back. So I was like, oh, yeah. Which I always imagine, like, with how often, like, negatively Harry leaves the Dursleys. I'm just like, what does he say when he comes back?
They're like, oh crap, he's outside. Oh shit. Oh,
they
crap.
also explain that in the books too, but they don't.
He threatens child services, but no.
He's like, Avada? He's like, oh shoot.
I imagine like he has to just like coast on that as best he can. But also I feel like he can like upgrade, like, well, he did get out of the cupboard. Which was so weird in like Chamber of Secrets when they were just like, hey, we gave you his second bedroom. It's like, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Real wholesome. Okay, but yeah.
Yeah,
Moving
now we're
on,
getting into David Yates' first entry into the Harry
And
Potter
moving forward
franchise.
forever
And
in
since
the future.
Yay!
WB has him by the balls at this point. Like they can't let him go. It's crazy.
I wonder if he's at a point where he like, look, I would do good stuff. I'm stuck.
I think he
I don't know.
does.
I mean,
do
I
good
don't
stuff
have
in the.
I don't have
Sixth
a lot
entry.
of I don't have a lot of issues with him, but I think it's probably like the writing stuff. But yes,
Yeah.
we're now in
I
Order of the Phoenix.
agree heavily.
So, okay, now we're in Order of the Phoenix, which I remember being like one of the films I wasn't too keen on, but I think I've actually ranked it a lot more higher as of late. I was really intrigued with the whole Harry Voldemort mind stuff that was going on.
Yeah, this is an interesting entry. It's first of all, it's very blue, very very blue.
It's very blue.
I'm not a fan
no,
of
what's
that.
weird? What's weird is I thought I remember watching it with like a lot more muted colors, and I was like, "There's actually a fair bit of color here." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. Like it doesn't have any cool like coming off of Mike Newell, which didn't have that much visual style anyways. David Yates' first entry is very similar. It's like you don't really get that visual style. I think he's getting his feet wet because I think he does some great work.
Okay, yeah.
in
The
Half-Blood
last 30
Prince.
minutes though are
The last 30 minutes-
fantastic visually.
Yeah.
Sure.
The fight,
Yeah.
fight is still holds up. Incredible.
Hybrid.
Yeah, I think the fight holds up. I think Voldemort in the fight though is just very cartoonish. I mean, he's just like dancing around.
But the scene right after it makes up for it when he's in the circle with Harry. I love that he's just taunting him and they're just connecting. And I love the score there.
Yeah.
I love that ramping up, and I love Dumbledore sitting down, talking to him, trying to like get him through it. And he looks over as Ron and Hermione and everybody else run into the front thing of the Ministry. It pays off well. It's just everything else before that is just weak and doesn't really flesh out anything. It's just kind of like they get to Hogwarts and then like they're just like, well, we got to do something. We got to do something. And then like they just keep saying that for like 45 minutes. And
it's a very dull film in the beginning. But
there's not a lot of conflict. But there's a conflict.
Even though there should be. There's a lot of personal struggle. This is probably
Look it all away.
In the books, this is probably the most introspective Harry book.
Yes,
definitely.
I do love like a lot of I think honestly my biggest like what kept me from ranking it like higher personally was just like I know it's purposeful, but I am just so annoyed with the Umbridge stuff. I was just like, but there's also like a bit of like comedy too at a point when they're just like putting up like hundreds of rules.
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Umbridge Filch too. It's hilarious. Filch is up on the ladder, like
Filch has gone full comic relief at this point.
Totally, yeah.
But I will say like
me too.
Like the best stuff I enjoyed in this film, like I like the setup stuff with the Order and like Sirius's house. I at least visually, and I like Sirius, so I'm just like,
scenes with Sirius are good.
Yes.
I love all the like Professor Harry aspects of just like teaching. It just feels natural because he's so supportive, like every class. It's so nice.
I think the scenes with I think the best part about this movie, getting to the positives, like Gary Oldman, like you said, is really good in this scene, similar to Prisoner of Azkaban. He doesn't have like as juicy of content per se as Prisoner of Azkaban, but his scenes with Harry are very much filled with sentiment.
When he gives him the picture of the old Dumbledore's army. Really
I love that stuff because Harry and Sirius have similar goals in this movie. They both want to, especially coming off of the Dursleys. Like Harry wants to have a family of his own, and then Sirius also wants to have a family of his own. So they have similar
and it sucks because it's like a waiting game, and they're just sitting there and can't really do anything. There's disappearances happening, of course.
Yeah, there's so much stuff going on.
Dove into the books,
and Sirius's name is like still being like slammed by the Ministry and all that.
That stuff interests me is like the corrupt thing of like
love that.
The Ministry just comes up with an excuse and they're just like, all right, we got to put the papers out, and it's just very much like I love the scene. Two things in particular, I love the scene in Dumbledore's office when Harry has the dream and. He screams at Dumbledore when they make that connection in the mind, like, look at me! I think Danny Radcliffe as a performer, this is his next tier up, kind of, as a performer. And I love the Snape and Harry, like, what is it called? Occlumency I can't pronounce it. The mind training. that scene, and especially knowing the behind the scenes, or they couldn't get it down, and it's like one of those scenes that they shot for just like weeks on end because they couldn't figure it out, and they finally got it. And I just think Daniel Radcliffe and Alan Rickman are really good there.
I wanted so much more of those scenes. Those scenes,
I did too. It's so brief, but
good. Like, in the book, I was like delving into that shit. I loved that stuff.
I do love. Sorry,
you go, Nathan. Yeah.
I do like also love just like when Harry like turns it back on Snape, and like they just like dive into his mind, and it's just like, oh snap, it's like young Snape, but then also like, oh my god, James bullied him. That's horrible.
Yeah, but then Harry still defends him. It's very funny. I'm like, Harry, you weren't freaking there. Why are you defending this guy? You weren't even a thought, Harry. God damn.
I do love that like future aspect though, when like looking back through Snape's eyes, where it's just like I physically see James, but I know it's an extension of Lily. Like I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
For what I like about this film, I really like the DA stuff. It wasn't done nearly as well as it was in the books, but my favorite scene in this film, although it may be because of the score, is the one where they're doing the Patronuses and they're all flying around and Luna's goes like the bunny across. I love that score so much. It's one of my favorites. I also really like that we get one of Ginny's great scenes in this film with her Reducto. One of the 3 that they give her. Because her character was great in that moment. And I do really like what they did in the Department of Mysteries with the visuals and the prophecies falling. And I like how they changed the Death Eaters from the previous film to the new like silver masks that just take away.
Me too. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. But this film, my mom and I spent so long today figuring out which Harry Potter movie it was that I walked out on as a kid.
Wow.
Because there was one Harry Potter film and I couldn't remember for the life of me because we go to Disney and Universal like every single year. So I could not figure it out because we went when we were at Universal Studios. And it was either this one or Half-Blood Prince. And we finally figured it out. And it was this one that I walked out of about 9 minutes in because I was I left. I was so pissed. And it was my mom's first Harry Potter film that she had seen like opening weekend. Because she saw the one before. And she had to continue. So this was her like first one, and she was so mad that I left.
What made you leave?
What prompted this? I'm so curious.
I walked out because I remembered, I'm pretty positive it was about 9 minutes in, so I went back and I think it was because of the opening with the Order, because I love the Order and I love Tonks. And they gave Tonks absolutely no screen time, and when they opened with them rescuing Harry from the Dursleys and like taking him to the Burrow, I hated it. I hated it so much because it was so much better in the books. So I left and I would not go back into the theater. So I sat outside the entire time while my family watched the movie.
Wow.
I feel like I've definitely mellowed to this film a lot more as I've gotten older. But there are some things that I just can't forgive it for. I hate that they left out Sirius giving Harry the mirror in this because it's a massive plot hole in Deathly Hallows.
I was asking myself that.
I was like, wait, where did
the mirror come from?
I really hate that because it just shows up and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like if you hadn't read the books, if you knew the books, you knew what happened. It's still a plot hole, but it's just like there, and then it doesn't even explain that Sirius gave it to him or that Aberforth is the one he's looking at, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I really hate that because it was such a sentimental moment and it was a great Christmas gift that Sirius gave him. Instead, they gave him the photo, which I liked that moment, but I just wish they had added the mirror in there as well.
I do like that scene in the house, though.
That's true. They get some really good scenes, but I feel like they could have given Grimwald Place more of a character in this as well because the house is so cool in the books. Which is a lower one on my end, but the bigger things for me are the mirror is left out. The Order is vastly diminished, even in their own film. Like way later, they get way more diminished. But I think those characters we don't get to meet nearly as much as we should. We don't get enough Creature, and because of that, we cannot continue on to the Ron and Hermione kiss from the books, which I love so much. And I just really didn't like that the Weasley twins pranks were so downplayed, because I think those could have been so cool to see.
Yeah, we see them like barely like with a little sparkling thing, and then it's like the fireworks is the one big thing we get. But
and that was
I
my
do like the
favorite
fireworks
part
thing.
of the books, because it was so cool. Every prank they did just like ramped up Umbridge's like anger, and like the swamp. I wanted to see the swamp.
I think we needed
cool.
something like going against the Umbridge stuff besides them like training, because we didn't really
because
have
they just felt like we were getting beaten
directly
down
going. We didn't have anything directly going against each other. It was just them just kind of like waddling around trying to get into the broom closet and crashing.
Yeah.
Like,
it was,
right.
Yeah. So I really didn't like that, because the Weasley twins are some of my favorites, and that's how they create their joke shop. Like we see the start of that in this, but it was like so much more in the books. And yeah, I think those are probably my biggest things. Also, it sucks that they didn't put in Ginny naming the Dumbledore's army, because I think that's one of her best scenes as well. So.
Yeah. Another drop the ball on Ginny. But
I'm a redhead. I gotta stand my own people, man.
I agree.
Nothing. They ruined her so much.
I'm a huge Harry and Ginny fan from the book. I was a supporter of it. Like, especially growing up, people used to hate the Harry and Ginny. Like, oh, you really don't like Harry if you like her with Ginny. And I'm like, oh, I like him with Ginny. Anyway,
I loved it.
Yeah.
I think the positive.
No.
I think some of the positives of this movie, though, is like the way it expands the world, because the fourth one kind of expanded it a little bit with the whole international tournament. But yeah, this one, we see the ministry. The way the layout of the ministry is going to play really consistent with the rest of the franchise going forward. And I really like that. We see Cornelius Fudge have his most prominent role here. And I love to hate him in this one, same way with Umbridge. Those are two characters I very much so love to hate. I don't like the little comedic gag he gets in at the end of this movie where he's like, Voldemort is back. I'm like, okay,
he's back.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of cheesy.
I didn't mind that one.
But otherwise, I think this one's very like them trying to be adults here. I just think it's very dull, even though I can see it like I can see it being very personal. I know they're trying to make it a very personal film for Harry. And Harry in the books is much more like angry, like he gets into fights and stuff, which I'm actually, I don't mind that they took that away. It would have gave Daniel Radcliffe some cool stuff to do, but I kind of do like when Daniel Radcliffe is kind of more resigned and more chill, as we'll see in the sixth one. But yeah, this film just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't excite me as much, even though it had a lot of it on its plate. In general, it's
just another one that's just the middle of the road for me. Like I could take it or leave it. Which their highs are really good, but it's just everything else is kind of not as good.
There's one thing I do love that's not in the books, I don't think. One of my favorite scenes of the movie is when Harry's fighting with Sirius. This is our first instance of getting actual fighting, by the way, which I really like the way they did the whole cool fighting dynamic. It's really awesome.
Nice one, James. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I'm about to say. Nice one.
I
really love that.
Probably, this might be the favorite scene in the movie because it's a dual thing. Like, I used to have some arguments with my friends about like how this line can be portrayed, because like it could go the negative way where he says like, "Nice one, James." Like, was Sirius only thinking of Harry as a substitute for James? Like, did he really see Harry as his own person, or was he only seeing him as James in that sense? Because in the heat of the moment, James is the first thing that comes to Sirius's mind. Or it's just like not taking it too seriously. He just sees Harry as like his best friend. Like he sees Harry as James' equal, in a sense. Like there's so many different layers you can think of in that line. I thought of it too, but it's just cool how you can see like a positive and negative. Like it's so complex. Which the scripts usually aren't in these later films. But I love that line so much. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I definitely was going to bring it up. Well, I guess also to that point, how did you guys feel about Sirius's death in the films?
It hurts.
It's too short.
It hurts. Yeah,
it hurts. Short. It is short. It's like boom, Avada and he literally floats away, and then sound comes off.
I thought it was mostly done how Lupin held him back though, and then sound went out.
I like that.
Yeah. I love the editing of it, and I think like it affects me the most because I just know like how much of a loss that is to Harry. Again, calling back to Professor Azkaban, where it's like a home he could have had.
I know it sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but it was a little. It was a little quick, but it was acted very well. And then the way, we didn't get to that freaking Helena Bonham Carter's like first introduction here, right?
See, she's who I love to hate. She is a villain I love to hate. I just hate Umbridge straight up, but I love to hate Bellatrix.
Oh, absolutely. when she was introduced, I was just like, all right, she's way more psycho than I remembered.
Fantastic.
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, when Harry's like chasing her down after that, which is it's so horrible to hear like immediately after, and then just the way it progresses to like the whole Voldemort manipulation stuff before the big fight. Cool fight. But yeah.
The fight scene is just so. It's comical to me. Like it's intense and I like it, but it's also very comical the way like he's breathing really fire and the fire dragon.
I actually
are you taking it seriously? What's going on here?
I was actually like I was rewinding it a couple times because I was just like, this is really cool. Cause like just like when Dumbledore like immediately walks in and like there was like a twinge of fear for Voldemort. It kind of it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, he starts pacing, so he steps back a little bit. It's like really cool.
Yeah, and then they circling and then but I love the progression where it's just like, you know, the fire and the water and then the glass that turns
the glass
to sand.
Is my favorite part. I love the glass.
And then the possession of Harry, and I'm just like, oh my god.
And you know why my favorite thing is the glass is because there's a big poster of Fudge up on where all the glass like goes up, and the poster comes like flying or like gets like just smashed through with all the glass. It gets like shredded. I'm just like, yes, the ministry has been corrupted. Let's go. Even though because you're like rooting against it at that point too. You're like, I hate Fudge. Just come on, man.
I just remembered. Just like thinking to like the mind flashbacks that it might not be more of a cursed image than just Voldemort in a hoodie.
That was very funny.
Or being Slender Man by the train, but
that is a very good scene for Harry when he's on the floor, like just groveling, and he chooses love over hate, and it's very poetic in a sense, and it's very much a good end cap for his arc in the movie, where he always felt so alone, and he felt like he had to do this all by himself, and then finally he realizes like, no, I got to believe in my friends. I am the chosen one, which is good because it leads into the next film where he's like very confident in himself.
Yeah. Maybe too confident, but it's
not really.
We get Luna in this film as well.
Yeah,
Ivana is amazing, and I love the story of her casting, and the whole thing was just really, really good. Mm-hmm. She's awesome in every scene. So
yeah, she kills it for the rest of the series. She's fantastic.
The shoes at the end, or wait, no, I'm thinking.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah,
so good.
It's so good. Okay, but. I know this is gonna be a long-running podcast. It's fine, but I got to keep the flow. Okay, so now that moves us to Half-Blood Prince, which I think is probably gonna be our most divisive discussion of the evening. So,
tons of notes on the Half-Blood Prince.
I was reading I was going through the book. I'm like, I'm gonna write down every single change.
I will be your outside general.
We'll get to the changes after I get through all the positives. I think. There's only like three main changes that I don't like, or three. I guess not even changes. Just three adaptation choices that I necessarily don't love, but I wouldn't like. I don't love. I don't hate them either. But this one, this is definitely the most visually unique film since.
It's so beautiful.
This is definitely the most visually unique film. Ugh, it's beautiful. Really? Like I had to write down the guy's name. What's his name here?
David Gates.
It's like Bruno Del Bono.
The only Harry Potter
Bruno
movie
Del
nominated for best cinematography. Well deserved.
Really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes.
Film boys, explain. You just say it. Going on.
There's one scene in particular that I love. It's one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's when Hermione is upset that Lavender and Ron are getting close. She goes to cry to Harry in this tower, and she's crying to Harry, and then Harry like kind of like soothes her. It's one of the main things I picked upon because in Goblet of Fire, when Ron and Hermione have that fight, they just kind of like get over it out of nowhere. There's no like second scene to talk about, but this one, Hermione gets very upset at Ron. Hermione goes to talk to Harry. It's a very touching scene. But then the camera pans up, and then you see the outside exterior of Hogwarts Castle, and then you see a scene with Ron and Lavender.
Yeah,
you see Ron and Lavender kissing, and then you go even further, and then you see Draco contemplating on top of the tower. And the shot there is just so beautiful because it's like he's thinking about it. Again, the location of the astronomy tower is very pinnacle to this movie. Like,
I think, even like I think opening on the train, Draco says something like, "I'd rather throw myself off the astronomy tower than have to attend this school." Which I also heard. I think I heard a line of that by Lupin in Prisoner of Azkaban. And I was like, "Are they foreshadowing?" I don't know.
I don't remember hearing that from Lupin. But yeah, the scene in the astronomy tower. Every time we see the astronomy tower, it's very much lit in darkness. A lot of dark scenes. You see Snape and Dumbledore arguing earlier. Then you see Draco on top of it, contemplating like what he has to do. And then of course we get Dumbledore's death. But then it ends on a light note, which I think is the beauty of this film. The way the tone. Yeah, the when Harry and Hermione are just talking.
And see, I was looking this up, and I'm like, I guess people are mad that Dumbledore's funeral isn't in it. I'm like, you have the whole wand moment. Like, you have the wand moment.
I
love
think the wand moment. That's one thing that I think was a really
another moment where I cried. But...
Oh yeah,
me too.
Devastating.
And what I cry at Please Severus. Yeah, that kills me.
Oh God, what I love about this movie is I think it's both the funniest Harry Potter movie and the like most tragic but it all balances it so well. And I think that's what's most appealing about it to me is like it feels like it captures the essence of like the humor and the sadness of like the tone of the Harry Potter books. Like I feel like all the humor doesn't like in Goblet of Fire, I feel like the humor like takes away from the tone sometimes. I feel like this all feels like in character. Like the luck potion stuff is absolutely hilarious.
I love that stuff.
Just like there's a bunch of little quips, like the little chosen one thing of like, oh, I am the chosen one. I love all those little quips.
The comedy is really good in this film. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what most of, and it just, I love the cinematography in it. Just like you just see things lurking in the shadows. There's a scene where Snape is in the hallway with Malfoy, and we never actually go into them. I was going to say that. Yeah, we never actually go into the shot on them. We just slowly go over, and then Harry's just sitting. You could barely see just like the side of his face. I'm like, yes, this is what I like envisioned, like reading the books way back when. It's just like, I think it adds the most like personality to a lot of like the Hogwarts spaces. I love Dumbledore's office. It feels very much like it feels lived in. And so like by this point, there's a lot of like contemplative stuff going on in this movie. And of course, there's a lot more in the books with Tom Riddle, and I think they could have included some more things, but also it could have gone off the rails of just too much of like, if you're spending too much time in those flashbacks, you're detaching from Harry. And I think what made the flashbacks work with Harry is it tied to him and with Slughorn and having to like pick his brain, and it builds up to that wonderful scene in Hagrid's hut. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he finally breaks and they're just drinking the beer, and he's like, "Don't be ashamed of me when you see it." And then he tells the story about he tells the story about Lily and the fish. I love that story. And so there's like a lot of just like emotional moments that really work. But also there is some flaws, and I noticed a lot in this time. They do Ginny really dirty in this movie. Especially because I was reading about some of the changes. Apparently there's supposed to be like a kiss after a Quidditch scene, I believe, which apparently is a big moment in the books. And I don't remember that, but I think that would have added some more. I think the kiss is really awkward in the room requirement. So that's one of my big negatives is the rat relationship. It's just everything else really works for me, and that's why I love it so much.
That's my only big negative too, is the Ginny and Harry relationship, which is kind of key to the later for this movie, and then especially in the next ones too. Like this is the person he ends up marrying, and their relationship is just very awkward and stilted. Like, let me tie your shoelace. So I was like, no, thank you. But
no, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or here, eat some pies.
Yeah,
that scene. I do like Ron in that because Ron's hilarious.
Me too. Ron is hilarious.
Ron scene, but it's not a good Henny scene. It's like what?
You're right.
No.
Oh yeah, no. It's open up you. Wait, what?
Her line
delivery.
She's a
mini Molly or something. Like it's almost creepy. It's weird.
Yeah, her line delivery there was just
even Harry felt uncomfortable in that. Like it was like,
yeah.
I guess I'll eat it. It's like it's to my face.
It sucks because then you look at like Deathly Hallows Part 1, and I didn't realize how good Hermione and Harry are together as friends in that. Like they have so many
Mhm.
great, like at Godric's Hollow and the dancing in the tent scene, and like they have so much more chemistry. And I'm like, oh my god! And I like
Oh,
obviously I like Harry and Ginny as it's portrayed in the books and how it ends up, but like the movie convinces you the other way, and you're like, no, like wait, what do I want? And so that's kind of annoying, and it started in Half Blood Prince, and I can admit to that flaw.
I
But
agree.
the star of this movie, though, is the cinematography, the camera work. The best part about this movie that they use for the later movies is the way the camera lingers on each scene just a little bit longer than it's supposed to. And I love that because it like lingers on a lot of the emotional scenes a lot. Like when young Tom Riddle asks Slughorn, like, I came across a very curious like thing in the book thing, and then like every scene with them, it just lingers on it just for a
Oh, and I
second
love
longer.
the
And then it
the
dissipates.
hourglass. I love the hourglass detail in that
Oh
scene.
yeah,
It's really good.
Yeah, it's
that's a
just
prop I'd like to own.
a lot of these emotional moments are just very much so. They're very detailed, very matriculate. It reminded me of a David Fincher movie going into it this time because I love David Fincher. He's my favorite director, and
Okay.
the way he shoots a lot of movies is the way like the camera is like very
Yeah, it's very
non-moving,
precise.
very precise. Exactly, it's the opposite of like kind of Quran's movies, especially Prisoner of Azkaban. You're going through the castle; it's very lively. Hogwarts is alive. This one, Hogwarts isn't alive. Heck, the whole world isn't alive. And you
Yeah.
kind of see that because that's the state of the world right now. Voldemort is back. He just killed, or he didn't kill Dumbledore yet, but the world is alive, and the world is very much like decaying in a sense in this
And
film.
Dumbledore is literally decaying, and you're like, oh my
Dumbledore's
god, I don't feel
dying
safe.
throughout
You don't feel
throughout
safe
the
at
entire
Hogwarts
movie.
anymore. No,
No.
you didn't
Yeah.
really feel it the past 3 movies, but also that is why I will defend the Burrows scene here. I know this is controversial. Is because
Oh wow, we're going there now.
the Weasley's house is like another place where he feels safe, and they're literally on Christmas Day taunting this man of like they can get him anywhere. And yes, it gets rebuilt. Who cares? It's the Weasley's house. But in the moment, seeing him tear it up, it works because it's just it's heartbreaking because, and then he runs after her because, and it's one of the good few moments that we get of recalling Sirius's death. I wish they would have added more about Sirius's death, but I love he's going out in the weeds. I think it's cool that Ginny goes out after him. I like that detail. But yeah, I do like that scene.
Let's toss it over to Emma for
Yeah, Emma, what do you guys say about that scene?
That is my biggest annoyance with this film. I absolutely
It's like 5 minutes though.
I hate this scene with a passion. I think that oh my god, my mom went to go surprise me with some Harry Potter Lego, and the woman at the store showed her, and they have the burnt down burrow, like the burrow blown up, where they had Gromp and like Hermione and Umbridge. So she got me Gromp because she's like, if I bring this into her house, she will eviscerate
Oh my
me.
goodness.
I like that set.
I don't think you can be a book fan and like this scene though. Like, first of all, cinematically, I think it's absolutely pointless because it's never brought up again, and it has absolutely no effect on the story. If you took it out of the film, nothing in the film comes back to this moment. It gets rebuilt. No one addresses it again. I think that it was a very male perspective, wants to blow up a fucking house and not give a shit. And I don't think that it made any difference whatsoever, and I absolutely hate it. And my biggest annoyance is that they put this in and left out a shit ton of other stuff when they could have done something.
That's fair.
In terms of action, or just in terms of just stuff?
Well, in terms of they had a massive book to work with, and they decided, oh, you know what would be cool to blow something up. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it comes from a very male perspective, and I was just like, I don't think that this adds anything to the story. And as a book fan, I hate it, but I also just think cinematically, like, it just.
Yeah.
I
think
think
point,
you're
but I
right
think
about
they
it doesn't
could have done
tie
it
back
better.
to anything. You're right on that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like, I think that there would have been other things that they could have done better. Like
how do you feel about the end of the? I know there's a fight at Hogwarts that supposedly like Aurors show up at the end of the book, and they didn't film it because they felt like then the Battle of Hogwarts would be too repetitive.
I'm glad they didn't film that.
How do you feel about that?
I don't mind that as much. I do wish that we got more of the Order though, and my big annoyance with that is the fact that they still left the Order out of Deathly Hallows Part 2, which is my least
Yeah.
favorite film. But I think that if they had done it properly, it would not have bugged me, because I do think that Daniel shines in those scenes by himself. And again, we get the effect of him being alone and like him being scared and everything. I think I really like his performance there.
The decision to do you like the decision to, I guess I was reading it in the books because it's been so long for me, is that Dumbledore freezes him down.
That part annoyed me.
Really?
It gives him so much more guilt that he
I like the
didn't do
Snape
anything.
scene where Snape
You know what
has
I
to
mean?
hush him and just be like, shh, and let him do all the work.
I like that moment, but I don't think, I feel like they may have filmed it both ways though. Like I don't actually know if they did.
They could have.
But because of the scene after that, when it takes Harry so much longer to get out of the castle and chase them than it does them, and they're all in the same place, I feel like maybe they went back and forth on that decision, because that continuity didn't make sense to me, because he comes out later and he's chasing after Snape, but they were in the same room. So, I mean, that could just be a filming thing too. But that bugged me, because I feel like Harry's character would have moved if he could have. I feel like in the books, when he's frozen and under, like, I don't mind the lack of invisibility cloak, because I do like Snape hushing him. But I do think character-wise, he would have moved if he could have. I don't think he would have.
I don't think he would have moved.
It pays off though, because in Deathly Hallows you believe him in Deathly Hallows Part 2 when he's talking to Dumbledore's brother, because you're like, he had this blind trust in Dumbledore for the better or the worse, and so it makes it all the more guilty in that moment. I think that's why it works for me, is because like I trusted the man I knew. And so it's just heart-wrenching, is because you have that trust going on, and then you also have the Severus trust going on. And so you have all these things putting so much faith in Dumbledore, and it's just, basically having to believe in something that keeps just getting knocked down. And I'm just like, oh my God. And so that's what works for me. But
yeah, because I think, what could Harry do in that scene? Like, he would have gotten killed by Bellatrix and the 3 other people up there.
But that's my point, though. That's why Dumbledore froze him in the books, because he knew what had to happen, and I feel like Harry is very rash. He is a Gryffindor. I feel like he was.
He does chase them down immediately after while they're grouped.
Well, exactly. I don't think he would have thought his actions through. It's not something that like is a deal breaker for me in the film. More the Burrow scene and the fact that, again, the house elves and the order were left out. I don't like that Remus and Tonks were massively downplayed.
And definitely Ginny. I think the biggest weakness is how they did Ginny in this.
I hate that relationship, and it sucks because their first kiss was really good, but because they didn't put Quidditch in, and you get so much more of Ginny's character in the book too, because Harry gets injured, so she has to fill in a seeker for Gryffindor team and play for him.
Yeah, see, that would have been super cool.
He's waiting to see what happened with the match. Like, it was just so much better. So I didn't like that, but my biggest thing with this is the order being left out, Ginny, and then the Burrow scene.
Do you like the cave scene? The cave scene is one of my favorite scenes in the entire franchise. I think Michael Gambon gives one of the best performances ever in that cave.
I was about to say, I think this whole movie is Michael Gambon's best performance as Dumbledore.
Yes, and he's like literally sitting on the edge, like struggling, and he keeps bringing him the cup, and he's like, Harry, water, but he's like trying to warn him. He's trying to warn him that the creatures are in the water, but he thinks to get water, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so stressful.
I don't like the set in the scene though. It was it looked too plasticky to me. Like
the crystals.
The crystals looked too plasticky, and I didn't like how they did that in Fairy or whatever you call them.
Emprites, something like that.
Yeah. But the actual scene itself was pretty much identical from the book. So I thought that the performances were really good, and I liked the actual scene. For me, again, too much fire, too much of that. But I also really didn't like the set. But I thought the actual scene itself and the performances were really good.
Yeah.
What do I think of half?
Come on in here, Nathan.
Sorry, I had to get that all out.
No, you guys are all dying on.
Go back and forth for a little bit on this one.
No, you guys like jumped to like so many scenes, and I was like,
you're like, hold on, I'm on the end.
Give us your thoughts as an outsider. Honestly, I feel like if you'd never read the books, I think it would have been a great film. And I do really enjoy what Carson said. I do really enjoy the comedic side of it. I think Harry on Felix Felicis is fantastic because Daniel is an amazing comedic actor.
I think this is Daniel's best performance too.
I love Slughorn. Like there were some things that sucked, and especially Ginny's character, like in the Slug Club and everything, downplayed so much. But but there are things I like about the film.
And I'm torn with this movie because I think it's my favorite like filmmaking, and like just that's what like is so prominent at the front of my brain. I'm like, yes, everything works from filmmaking perspective for the most part. And then like I start to uncover the story more, and I'm like arguing with myself. I'm like, but no, it's presented in a cool way, but like also like this kind of is iffy.
That's how I am. I'm like split. I'm like, I'm watching for the film or am I watching for the fandom? Because there's two different things going on.
It's so hard.
I think. Oh yeah, you go, Nathan.
Yeah, come on.
I was gonna say something else.
I'll mute myself.
I was gonna start like 3 minutes ago. No, it's fine. Sorry, seriously, it's fine. But okay. So where do I start? The Burrow. I don't. I mean, okay, I can definitely see where Emma's coming from with the Burrow scene for sure. I like really like the big standout thing. I'd be like, what I liked about the Burrow scene is just like I like the callback of like Bellatrix taunting Harry about Sirius. It's really the positive I pull. Like otherwise, I'm just like it's a scene. Not really. Like I think the biggest stuff like I'm really into is like the Draco stuff and just like him having to like build up to having to do this and just like practicing with the
really good.
Yeah, practicing with the Vantage cabinet. I love the scene where he has the breakdown in the bathroom, followed immediately by Harry being reckless as hell.
Shot scene.
Using Snape's spell. Perfect.
It's almost like it's almost like black and white in that scene. Like the tone of that movie or that shot is like so toned down. I love it so much because
in the physicality of the spells, like I've never felt like the spells so like impactful. They're like crashing through things. I'm like, oh my god, I didn't know it could like travel through all that.
So
and then he's like it's like Tom got like not Tom, it's the actor. Draco gets like full of holes essentially. He's like, oh my god, Harry almost killed a man, which is insane. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure Harry just kind of like runs off. I don't think there's. Well, I know there's like more like stuff going on, but I also like really love just like the Harry Dumbledore friendship. I think it probably shines the most in this when they're like just having somebody like sentimental like from the get-go when they're just like I just kind of like go along with what you say, sir, or just like you need to shave, my friend, like all that stuff.
It's interesting because there was supposed to be I was reading there was supposed to be a Dumbledore at the Dursley scene in the beginning of this, which I do not remember whatsoever, which would have been super interesting. But I do like the opening here that Harry's just reading a newspaper and, he's just treated like an absolute stranger. And I kind of like that in the Muggle world that, like, for, like, at least 2.5 seconds, he can just have a conversation with somebody. It is kind of forced. It is kind of iffy. But by the time Dumbledore shows up, you're like, all right, let's go. And so I guess
another thing. Like I think at the beginning when I think Luna fixes his nose after the whole train stuff. She's like, you look exceptionally ordinary, and he's like quite happy to hear that. Like honestly.
I just love there's like specific characters that get a spotlight in this movie, and they both excel very well. Like I think Gamblin, this is his best performance. Best performance as Dumbledore. Like we talked about it. Like he's very funny, but he's also very dark and like very imposing, but also very whimsical. Like when he's talking to Slughorn early on, love that stuff. And then Draco's Tom Felton's best performance, bar none. It's his best character work here. I mean, this movie is just so character centric. I mean, that's why I like it so much. A lot of characters get a lot of great focus in this movie, and it's shot in a fantastic way. And then same thing for Alan Rickman as Severus. I think Alan Rickman gives his best performance as well in the same movie. I think he has a lot to do. There's a deleted scene where he's like contemplating before he has to kill Dumbledore. It's like him just looking out. It's like a very quiet scene. He's just looking, but you could also see like the pain in his face. And I think they took it away because it's like it gives a lot away. Like this guy is you're supposed to be sympathetic towards this guy, which you're in the movie you're not really supposed to kind of know until Deathly Hallows. But I think
Snape
Severus
is also supposed to, in the book, he burns down Hagrid's hut. It's not Bellatrix in them, which is really interesting because it kind of like throws him off the scent more of like, oh, I'm gonna like, continue down this path. Of course, they don't know in that moment, but Harry would be looking at that, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that they really downplayed the Snape, Dumbledore, and Voldemort backstories a lot in this film too, which is also something that annoyed me because all three of them, well, I guess two of them, give really good performances. So I really wish that we'd gotten just a little bit more of that.
And it's a lot very late in the series, and it's all in one montage, and it's very you get hints of it when you watch it again with Dumbledore, especially in Half-Blood Prince, actually, of like when he's like, you know, skirting around the fact that Harry has a part of him in him, but like using his words very carefully to be like, oh, that's why you act like that, not like you're a Horcrux. Like, or I don't think he knew he was a Horcrux, but at least he knew that there was a part of him in Harry, and it's like, I feel like that could have been set up better, but for
the Horcrux something could have been set up better too, because I didn't like how in the films it's very much like, oh, I don't know where these are or what these are. But in the books, they're like very, okay, we know that they're one of every founder's objects. Like we have a starting place, and they didn't have a starting place. Dumbledore was just like, I don't know, it's something.
Right.
Like,
which I do kind of like in Deathly Hallows Part 1 when they get really frustrated. I do like some of that. I do like
they do that in
fizzling
the books,
out.
Though.
Yeah, and it's like it could have. I feel like it ended up at the same place. We just could have had the first link of the puzzle instead of nothing.
You could have cut the meat better.
I think that they didn't explain Snape as the Half-Blood Prince as well as they did in the books either, which was a story that, like, I'm not a Snape fan, but I really enjoyed that story in the books.
That was one of the main things I didn't like about this movie, but I don't think it takes
Doesn't Hermione
away because
figure it out or something? I can't remember.
Hermione did. She figured out half of it. She figured out his mom, and then he actually reveals to Harry in the end that it was like, the whole backstory and how that was.
The delivery is kind of hollow, but again, I think this is Severus's best acted and best character work in the same movie. So I kind of like give it a pass because like the character work done with him from the jump, like when he's doing the unbreakable vow, you can see a hint of sadness in every single scene that Severus is in, like leading up to what he has to do in the end. And it brings so much to his character that we hadn't seen up to that point. And I am a big Snape fan. I'm more of a Snape fan from the books, of course, but I just think in the movies, Snape is done, especially in this one, very, very well.
Alan Rickman gives him a lot more humanity, I think.
Like if this wasn't Alan Rickman, it would have been a totally different story. But since it is Alan Rickman, then he just kills it here. The way he just his Harry, and then the thing that he has to do. Oh man. And then like going back to cinematography, the wide shots in this movie are plentiful and they're fantastic. Like when Harry confronts Sirius towards the end of the movie, when they're on the hill, and then you get that huge wide shot and Harry's like pushed back. It's just so well shot. I'm like, gosh, like every other scene in this movie is like a painting to me. Like I can like freeze frame every kind of scene. Like when Draco has to like go to like the room of. Does he go to the room of requirement? Room of requirement. Like there's a big door and then there's a huge frame. It's just so well done. The unbreakable vow, the way it zooms on each of their hands.
I love that scene. That's a really good scene.
Really
it's also
good. Yeah,
identical from the books, but it's a really good scene.
And Narcissa is good as Draco's mother, who's feeling very frightened. Again, feeling of loneliness. She's feeling very lonely too. Like she doesn't want to lose Draco, and she's scared if Draco can't own up to what he's about to do, then she might lose him. And it's very good. The acting in this movie is just phenomenal. I'm sitting here, I'm like,
it's incredible.
It's like I love Daniel Radcliffe as this chill, calm, confident wizard. Like he was very unsure of himself in the fifth one, where he felt like he had to do everything on his own. But in this one, in Half-Blood Prince, he's very confident. He's able to have time for those relationships. He's able to have time for some jokes. And his comedic timing is like impeccable here.
He's a really good comedic actor.
Yeah, I think when he's like on the liquid luck, it's really hilarious. Where he's like,
I love that scene.
Slughorn's like watching him just like walk off the ground. He's like, Harry, sir.
Then come with me.
I also come along.
It's the place to be. So
I love the balance. Like this film was able to let the 16-year-olds be 16-year-olds, have fun. It's their last year, like at Hogwarts. It's the calm before the storm.
Normal year, but
the last normal year, and it feels like that. Like they're cracking jokes. Ron finally gets to try out for the Quidditch team. Hermione gets some great Emma Watson again. Best performance I think is Emma Watson in Half-Blood Prince, because some of the shots just linger on her just a little bit. The way she like looks over at Ron, helps him out during the Quidditch match, and then looks back down. It's like a lot of those slow, quiet moments. The way she's crying to Harry, I'm like, oh gosh. And then the final scene when her and Harry are having that conversation. Again, it might be at the expense of Rupert Grint as Ron. He doesn't have as much emotional scenes. He's mostly used for comedic scenes.
He's a lot better in the books as well. He's mostly
exactly. Yeah, he's mostly comedic in these films, which is fine. But I think it works really well.
He gets his time to shine with the chess match, but after that, it kind of
downgrades. Agreed. Yeah. But yeah, I love Emma Watson in this movie, and it kind of continues in Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, where there's a lot of scenes in that one as well, where it lingers on her just a little bit as she's like performing putting her clothes around the tree a little bit, just like some of those very quiet scenes with Emma Watson as Hermione, just fantastic in this film.
Yeah, I think it solidified my favorite Hermione performance is actually Deathly Hallows Part 1, which I never used to be one of those movies that I resonated with. It's oddly enough, it's the movie that I've like reacted to a lot differently as I grew up. Like it didn't really. I'm just like, as a kid, I was like, oh, slow movie. Like, well, let's get to the battles. But now I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in there that I like. But I guess we can get into that.
Yeah.
We get more thoughts on this one.
I mean, we've been here a bit, honestly, on Deathly Hallows, or on Half-Blood Prince. I think it's time to get into Deathly Hallows Part 1. Let's keep them separate so we can properly.
Let's do it.
They're very separate. Yes.
This began the whole Part 1, Part 2 craze in Hollywood.
Yes, it did.
And I'm first,
and I'm still like shocked that like Part 1 got like the almost 2.5 hour treatment, but Part 2 is shorter. Like if you're gonna be on the last film, that should probably be your longer one.
Should have been, but they weren't smart.
Should have been.
Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, I have like a couple things like to negatively say about Part 2. I will say Part 1.
You're missing a lot in Part 2.
I would imagine. But we'll get there. Okay, but Part 1. Something I have been quite frustrated about ever since I first saw it when I was younger was just like how Hedwig gets killed off and we really don't dwell on it because I'm just like, that's Hedwig. Like it's like you're one of your best friends when you're away from your best friends. That is your longtime pet. Like,
but also
anyone who has a pet knows. Yeah, anyone who has a pet knows it's just like, but there's like no time to even like reflect. They're just like, oh, Hedwig protected me, gave me away.
I'm fine with that because everybody else is dying in that scene. You lost Mad Eye Moody as well. It's like you don't have time in general in this movie.
I don't really know that Mad Eye. I know the fake man.
How dare he? How dare he?
I know Hedwig everything.
As soon as he gets back, like Fred, George, one of them gets injured. So it's like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and I love the scene where Harry walks out. He's about to leave, and he's like, "No one else is going to die for me." Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great moment.
I think they do this well in the books too, and in the movies, Death. I think they do that really well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is also like really humorous at the get-go when like they're all doing the polyjuice potion, becoming Harry.
I love that scene. It's very funny.
Yeah, that was really well done.
Okay, who is the guy that like left? He just skirted out of the party, basically. I don't know why I couldn't remember where he was, and then when he came back, I'm like, who is this guy? I can't remember in the books like
because
who
he was supposed to be in the Order from the get-go, and they didn't fucking do anything with the Order. And he has a bigger arc in the book, especially with like the Creature and Dobby later on and everything. So
yeah.
Oh, to the point of like deleted scenes. I know there's like a couple ones for like when Harry says goodbye to the Dursleys. Like
I hate that they took that scene out.
I wish they would have kept that. Yeah.
I guess I had false memory because like I knew they cut the scene with Dudley, which I also really like. I think it's the same scene actually, but I could have sworn the Aunt Petunia scene was in the movie. I remembered it so vividly.
I did too.
Like,
it was weird. And then I rewatched it the other day, and it was like, you didn't just lose a mother that night. I lost a sister. I was like, oh my god, the first time we've ever seen this her speak like a human, and I'm just like
nothing for Vernon though, and that's fine.
nothing.
I don't remember
Vernon,
that
get out
movie
of here.
scene. I might have to rewatch.
Go look it up after this. It's pretty good. It's like 30 seconds, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I wish they had left those in because they were the only redeeming scenes that the Dursleys got, because we never got the letter scene from Dumbledore in the last movie, so we just got
Yeah.
Interesting.
But as part one continues forward, back to the newly renovated burrow, as it were.
Yes.
We built it up. Hey, there is that
Come
one
on.
side house. They got the side house, which I will say is
they
pretty,
added they
they're renovated.
You know what?
It's
This is
it's a good
opportunity.
timing. It's good timing.
Making money from the joke shop. It's fine.
Let's add a house. Let's add a.
I just imagine it as like a Weasley like HGTV home renovation show, and they're all like
Yeah.
the Property Brothers show up, except it's Fred and George, and
I would love
I
to
need
see
it.
Arthur Weasley on that. He'd want to put in a whole bunch of Muggle stuff. It'd be so. Fun.
yes, and then they'll all be
Yeah.
arguing and be like, "This is not how we live." Like,
Oh, and they introduce a new Weasley in this film. In the film.
They do.
Domhnall
Yeah,
Gleeson himself.
Yeah. Our,
Wasn't he supposed to be in
Yep.
fourth one, Goblet of Fire?
Yep.
I think. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
but
because
isn't
that the
isn't
that the
his-
girl from the school, the other school?
Yeah. I
Flora,
know it's like
yeah.
it's the same actress. I was like, hold on.
Yeah, that's
What-
how they
how did we
meet.
get here?
Is it the Triwizard Tournament?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was literally like, how did we get here with her? I don't.
This is like really, really, really small, but I really wish we'd gotten Charlie Weasley too, because he was such a cool character in the books. Like he's so small, but I just wanted to see who they would have cast for that as
Yeah,
like the
you just like
curse
you wanted like
breaker,
you want a
like,
validation of the visuals. You're like, okay, that's who he is.
I personally, as a woman, want a visual of that. I feel like he'd be attractive. But yeah, Bill was like vastly left out, which is kind of a bummer because him and Fleur have a. I mean, Fleur has a much bigger arc in the books too. Honestly, I didn't mind them taking out of the the films, but I like her as an actress. I think they did well.
Yeah. Okay. So also with this film, camping. That's a big jump. Actually, we have to do the ministry stuff.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah,
my
because
favorite
it
part of the
is real.
movie. The
No,
whole
yeah,
heist
I
thing
think
with the ministry.
That's like the whole like first hour, pretty much.
Yeah.
Which yeah, I love this stuff. We're just like going through, like
Oh,
more
that's
I like the comedy of them just being like confused and thrown off, and it's like, oh my god, Umbridge is here. My wife's all alone downstairs. Ron, you don't
Yeah.
have a wife.
those actors did so well. I can't imagine the
Yes.
amount of
I
ADR that they
know.
could have needed, but so good.
I feel like Ron, especially, like I see the other ones, and I'm just like, I definitely see them trying to. It's not bad, but I'm just like, I feel like the one Ron's impersonating was doing the best.
Well, he looks the most like Ron as well. Like I feel like
He
you can't
does.
connect the other two
Well, I was
characters to.
I was actually gonna say the dude, Harry's supposed to be kind of like I've had like a Daniel kind of vibe at times. Looking, I was like, all right, this is like the true aged Harry, but not the 19 years later. No,
Wow.
but it's it was all like really entertaining for sure, and I like just like when they go into like that trial that Umbridge is having, and she's got the locket, and just like the whole sea of Dementors above, just like waiting.
Very
So
much
cool.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very
And
funny.
even
this
just
film.
like
Hmm?
sorry, and just even like when they're making their escape and like they're just like all like shutting down like everything before they can get to the flu powder. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a David Yates signature in these, especially with Deathly Hallows, the slow motion,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kind of stuff. We get it later in like the lake and stuff, in part 2 when they like jump off the dragon.
I don't know if we picked the locations in these films too, but I love the
Yeah.
location
They're
shots.
so cool.
Very well done. Yeah.
That's one thing
Sweeping
we forgot to
countryside.
mention about Half-Blood Prince quickly is that those cliffs they actually went and shot somewhere. Obviously, they weren't standing like in the middle of the ocean, but there was a cliff. And
Apparitions
shot it.
not real.
Yeah, those clips
Well,
were good.
Oh, but yeah, this movie is like, it's so interesting because it's like they're out in the world now, and it just you feel off because
It's not Hogwarts.
it's not Hogwarts, and they're in the diner, and it's like get the lights, get the blinds, lock the door, and you're like, oh my god, like I've never had this feeling before of like they gotta like
I've
go on a
always had
quest.
the,
It's like in London, and you're like, I don't know how to feel about this because they're not in a castle and it's scary.
I was always so curious about like time period because I know like in the books, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be set between like 92 and 98. And I was always like remembering like, wasn't that cafe lady wearing earbuds? Like,
yeah, their modern day stuff mixes it up. The people really don't like the bridge exploding scene because that bridge was built in like 2008 or whatever it was, and they're supposed to be in like the 90s. So yeah, their modern doesn't take, but like I like it. It's not all
I
don't mind it at all.
But it literally doesn't line up. Yeah.
I was always just like, this is fascinating.
Yeah, continuity wise, it doesn't make sense.
I think it's very funny about this film because I like the first hour, and usually throughout Harry Potter, I like the quiet scenes a lot. But for this one, for part one of Deathly Hallows, I like the first hour because I like the heist. It's very intense. It's very like inviting, very cool. I can watch it so easily. But then when it's like funny, like the second half of this movie really like drops the ball for me. I don't know why. Like I love certain scenes with Harry and Hermione. I love certain scenes, but I don't know. It just turns to a complete dull fest for me. Like I'll
admit it slows for sure, but like I feel like there's like enough like little moments that I enjoy. Like the Carson going off with the dance scene is like phenomenal.
I like that. Yeah.
It's a very cute moment. And I also like really love when they get to like granted there's more traveling in between that for sure, but like when they get like to the whole like Lake Patronus scene, which I really it is funny because I watched part 1 and 2 back to back like right before we start recording here, and we were getting into like Snape's flashback stuff when they revealed that it's his, but I was like I completely forgot that was a movie ago and not the same one I was watching because
I know
it just felt like one flow thing, which was cool. But yeah,
I like the little what's haunted me as a child is when the Horcrux opens up and it's like Harry and Hermione just like naked and like in the cloud of darkness. I'm like, oh,
dude, that threw me off forever. I was just like,
I don't know. Oh no, I agree. That was weird.
I don't like it.
Yeah. I was also like a child with my parents, so I was like, "This is more awkward."
No, I think my grandparents used to take me to every Harry Potter movie in the theater. Like we used to go to the bookstore and get the book, and then like when the movies started coming out, or like that was our yearly thing, or like go to the movies or whatever. I
felt
getting to the later movies and just
I felt so blindsided. I remember like I went to other than Chamber, like the only ones I saw in theaters were Half-Blood and both Deathly Hallows. But I remember for my birthday we went to go see part 1, and like I would go with my dad, and like that scene comes on, I'm just like, our procedure, just lock forward, don't move.
Just don't make horizontal eye contact, just only the screen. Do you guys like the humor like after in the tent when Harry's like, just keep talking about that light going into your heart, and then like I like the flames that Hermione makes. He's like, this wand will do, and then he's like, Reducto! It just blows up.
It's so good.
Yeah, this one for me is lower on my list just because it is part of the 2. But I don't hate it. Like I dislike Half-Blood Prince more. But it's not it's not the lowest on my list, I think. For me, I didn't find it to be too slow. I found it faster than the book, personally. I found the first half of the book slower when I was reading. But there are some scenes that I really like the Hermione and Harry stuff is my favorite. I really like how they did the 7 Harrys in the beginning. I thought that was really good. They leave out, again, a lot of stuff, which, again, since the last one is not a very long film, they shove a lot in there that they've missed. But I really like the ministry aspect of it as well. So, I think adaptation-wise, not the best. Filmmaking is a little bit slow for me, but not a lot. Like, I still really enjoy watching that film because of, I think, the Golden Trio's performances in it. Maybe.
I agree. I think the trio is fantastic.
Yeah,
here.
Really great.
It's so weird in terms of the filmmaking because I think David Yates did his best in Half-Blood Prince filmmaking wise, but then he goes back to this one and part 2, and it's just kind of like I call it blockbuster filmmaking, especially part 2, where they're all very basic, like
crane shots,
crane shots, like hey, two characters have a joke. Hey, we had a fun time, didn't we? Yes, we did. Wink, wink at the audience, and then moves on to the next thing. It's like I don't really need that. And in terms of adaptation, I think she's exactly right because I love the Deathly Hallows book. And this one is
my favorite.
Yeah, and this one is like pretty long, right? I think part 1's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. I think.
One is longer than 2.
Yeah.
And part 2, 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Like 2:10. Yeah.
2:10, and I'm like,
I mean, granted, that's still 2 films for 1 book, which is solid, but like also
but it's so weird because like
if you can reach that runtime for most of your series, you should for all. of them.
There's no reason
It's
Chamber of
the finale.
Secrets should be longer than part 2, right?
Yeah, it's so the finale. So I feel people are coming. Like they're gonna sit down and see it. I'm pretty sure it made over $1 billion. It's one of the first $1 billion.
Both of them,
it did.
I think, right?
Yeah.
I think it's because it was the first. Like it was the first. It was the first massive franchise that they did in the version of the YA, and they did the 2-parter and everything. So I don't think I wish that it had been at the point where MCU we'll sit down for a 3-hour movie. I don't give a shit. Just give it to me. But they weren't at that point yet. Which
I was also reading today that they shot these back to back, and it was like a year of shooting. I wish. God, it was like I'm seeing like this. There's behind the scene pictures of like them with this big like Harry Potter slate, and it's like day 2 of 247 shoot days, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't even imagine. It's so terrifying. But so I kind of wish that there would, even though as you know they were pretty grown up at that point, that really it was beneficial for them to shoot it all at once. But
they're like, we're out of child labor laws now.
I wish there was a break for kind of them to step back and like look at what they kind of need to fill in specifically, because I think it more just goes. It's more of just a climax to the first movie than it is a movie on its own. It's very much as if that makes it it's very much as a continuation of the storyline, and it's a climax. It doesn't really have its own distinctiveness.
What is the theme of Deathly Hallows Part 1? What's the theme? Like in Half-Blood Prince, Prisoner of Azkaban, like you can see the theme of these movies. Like Half-Blood Prince, what's the theme that they're all struggling to go through? Like the outside world?
I think it struggles too because they didn't set it up properly in terms of the Horcruxes and the hunt and Dumbledore's will in the beginning of Half-Blood Prince, in the beginning of this film.
Yeah.
Because they don't know, they're aimlessly searching basically, where in the books they have more of a direction. And then in the same with his will, Harry immediately knows in the books that the snitch he caught was the first one he caught, and he knows what to do with it. And in the movie, it takes him to nearly the end of the film.
Nearly the end, yeah.
Figure out, maybe I need to put this in my mouth. And Harry's a lot more smart in that. So I think it struggles to find a theme as well because the setup lacked a lot in this one.
Yeah. Very weird. Like the first one could be 2:30. The second one should have been at least 2:30 as well.
I don't get it. Solid 5-hour adaptation.
Yes, we need it. But that cool animation for the Deathly Hallows.
That's one of my favorite moments.
That's in part 2, right?
I love how they did that.
In part 2, sorry, they're blending in my head as we hit a longer length of podcast than Deathly Hallows Part 2.
What? Wait, are we sure that's in part 2?
Yeah.
I just watched it today.
It's at Luna's. It's at Luna's house. Yeah, and
no, I know it's at Luna's house. But I thought they.
No, it's in part 1. It's in part 1, guys.
Are you serious?
Yes, it is, because Ron comes back and then he blindly agrees with her, and he's like, "Oh, I think we should go there too."
It's after that the Snatchers get them, and then we have Dobby get the rescue before.
Yeah, and then it ends on the beach.
And Shell Cottage.
Yeah, I guess I am wrong.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah, no, that is my favorite animation. I love that.
The animation is great.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
And I love how they had Emma narrate it. It was really good.
Yeah. Midnight, Twilight. Okay. I want to make an edit. I'm sure someone's done it, but I want to make an edit of Cedric Diggory and Ron, where Ron just says Twilight's fine.
Oh my god!
Wow.
That's kind of funny.
It
but
needs to be on TikTok.
it does. I'll see what I do. But yeah, part one, it's pretty enjoyable. And like I don't like dislike any of the films for sure, but it's definitely like
Me
of my
neither.
lower. But again, like a lot of like little moments that I really enjoy. Part two, maybe this will be a mixed bag with all of us. We'll see. But
Yeah,
Cannot.
I think it's hard. I mean, it's not hard to criticize part two, but I think it's just like it's a breeze of a movie. Like you watch it, it's entertaining. There's some good
love
set
the-
pieces. I
there's a
just
lot of
think,
like feel good moments. I feel that like amp up, especially with like the score, because it's the classic score, and we're in the finale. So like when we start getting Hogwarts back and stuff,
yeah,
like moments like that.
like it's entertaining, but it's the issue I have with Goblet of Fire, where Goblet of Fire is entertaining, but they don't give you any time to breathe in this movie at all. It's just like set piece to action to action to action. I'm like watching it. I'm exhausted after the movie ends. I'm sad that it's over, but I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, who is it that dies? Fred or George? I think it's Fred.
One of them, Fred.
Fred.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think it's Fred, Lupin, and Tonks all die off screen, and this is
Oh,
a shorter
right.
runtime you've given it. Why?
They do in the books too, though.
Really? That's awful. Add more.
Yeah.
That's why I liked how she did death. I mean, we do not speak her name in this house anymore, but
Nope.
I like how she did death in these books because it was so heartbreaking, because half of the deaths we see, half of them are like super fast, half of them happen off screen. Like I think she gave us every sort of grief that you could go through, because that is the way that it happens, especially if you're in battle sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess it also like puts you like in like the main trio's perspective of just like when you're not around like all the time. So like if something like that happened, because they have that scene where like Ron is like breaking down over Fred, and it hurts to watch for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is the fun finale.
Yeah, like
The Green Gods Bank part, it's fine. It's a roller coaster. It's literally like a roller coaster. I'm like, this is weird.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
weird
It
because
is an actual ride.
The dragon's on display in the alley at the.
yeah, it's. I got it.
I need to see that in person.
I want
I've
some
never been
butterbeer.
there
When
in
you
5
do,
years.
it's amazing.
What was I gonna say? Like when I'm watching Deathly Hallows Part 2, I really like it. And now that you guys now we're talking about it, and I'm struggling to like come up with the
I like it
passion
too.
to like
I like
that I
it
had for the
too.
other. I'm like, wait, I thought I liked this movie.
I mean I do have it like a bit higher probably than most most here, because I like it is like, since it has that finale sense, there's like, okay, there was multiple times where I'm tearing up because it's a finale thing, and I'm just like, oh my god, like it's all coming together.
I feel like if you don't read the books, it's a great film. I don't know. Actually, I would like to know you guys' point of view on the Voldemort death. We'll get that later. In terms of
always
reading the book and knowing the filmmaking. But I think if you hadn't read the books, it's a pretty good film.
Yeah,
it's-
I mean,
it's
I
solid.
actually, I did kind of like grow up having an issue with like how Voldemort dies, just because like the way he just sort of withers away. I'm just like, it doesn't feel like enough. I want that impact or something.
My biggest
Yeah.
offense is the film did.
Yeah, tell the audience how he died, like in the books, Emma.
Yeah, so in the books, I remember reading this book, guys. I remember reading the scene, and I just could not wait to see that scene on film. Like I remember reading it, and I was like, I can't wait to see what they do with this. And then they effed it up. But he dies mortal, basically. Like that was the whole point of the entire series, is that he dies, like he just drops dead, just like anyone else. He you know, they kill the 7 Horcruxes, and then he dies.
That's
And
fascinating.
not Thanos.
No, he doesn't do this weird flashing, sparkly, blowing up thing that they do with Bellatrix too, which I hate it. But in the books, the scene for me was so good in the Great Hall, where Harry's doing his massive speech and they're dueling, and it's just the two of them. It's just one-on-one.
I love that.
Everyone is watching.
Everybody's
and
watching.
Everyone is watching, and you get the entire backstory between the two of them, and he talks about the Elder One, and I loved that scene, and I really, really wanted to see it. And then they did this "let's fly into space" thing, and then blow you up thing.
It was so weird to me. I'm watching it like just a few hours ago. I'm like, isn't everybody supposed to be watching this fight? Like in my head, I always had like everybody's watching,
there.
but nobody's there. I'm like, this is the most
Nobody's
anticlimactic. Like it feels so weird. Like
And
again,
you know
Harry's alone here. Why is he alone?
Yeah, which it does. Now that I'm thinking about it, the Voldemort death kind of gets the Ben Solo effect, as it's really not even mentioned. Like right after he just walks back, it just cuts. They just walk in, and then he's like watching everybody talk, but there's really no acknowledgement of like. There's no acknowledgement of like
we're good.
Like it's just like, oh, we're gonna get some coffee and donuts now. Like, let's go to our 9 a.m. class. It feels
I got
weird.
this cool wand now. Not really.
You don't get that like rejuvenation between everybody. You don't get that like because everybody's just like talking like. Yeah. Here's walking by and they're all talking like, hey, yeah. You see that when the guy killed the other guy? It's like, why are you guys talking? Like everything's fine. Like,
and then it cuts right to the bridge, and then they're already walking on the bridge.
It's not even like a full next day. It's like we fought all night. It's the next morning now. Like again, give us time to breathe, process everything. You have time. These bodies are fresh.
I think it's because they had to put so much into a short amount of time that they left out in the previous films. They had to explain all of that to wrap it up, and then they also, for some reason, gave this like a really short runtime. But it's just, Nathan, you have to read the book because it's a zillion times better. Like the Battle of Hogwarts and that last half of Deathly Hallows is so fantastic. As soon as they get through the pub to the Room of Requirement. Like, it's just so good. And McGonagall is so much more predominant in the books. She has some incredible scenes where she does magic, like in the Ravenclaw Tower. And, the order is completely left out. I loved the scene in the books where they're divvying everything up and Fred and George say they're going to take on the passageways and Remus and Lupin are going to take on it's just so much better in that. And I feel like they just kind of made it blockbustery in this one.
It definitely is. I mean, but also, I will like also say like it's very nice visuals of action.
I mean, they always do the visuals.
I really love the professor scene where they're all doing the charms to protect Hogwarts. I love that scene.
Great.
Yeah, I love I love a lot of like the shots. Like I think it's one of like the Order members where like someone's coming through the window, he like freezes them and shoots them back out.
Kingsley, that was a good one. I like how they randomly left in that little note of Lavender getting bit by Greyback, which was something in the book.
Oh, it holds on it too.
I'm like, dang.
I don't know why that's the one thing they're like, oh, we gotta put this in, but I liked that.
We gotta kill Ron's ex-girlfriend. We gotta.
Yeah, I know, right? Yikes.
The one thing they pull from the books, I'm like, the fuck, but like, it was a really good scene.
It was really
Wait, Emma, how did Bellatrix die in the books? Did she also die by Ron's mom as well?
She did, It's the same thing with Voldemort. Like, she just dropped.
Like it seems so like, again, like blockbuster filmmaking where she's then I can hear the crowd.
She gets a one-liner.
Yeah, you get the one-liner. Yeah. I'm like, come on.
And that was also better in the books too, because she was supposed to be dueling Tonks, Luna, and Ginny all at one time, which I think would have been a better visual anyway.
Oh yeah.
And then almost hits Ginny with a killing curse. So Molly comes in and is like, "Not my daughter, you bitch." And then they duel, and I liked their duel, but again, I just hated how randomly they were the two that they decided to blow up, where all the Death Eaters had regular deaths, like. The continuity just made no sense, and on top of it, the point of the books was that they were supposed to die alone, just a regular death, and then
that's why Harry. I was thinking about like it. Like I was talking to my girlfriend, and we're like trying to like hash out. I'm like, oh my god, why did I forget all the Resurrection Stone stuff? And like that's why he drops the stone, and that's why he realizes that. He's not the master of death. It was just an illusion of getting somebody back. Yeah. And so that's why it's so powerful and why the wand payoff like should have worked better is like learning about it. But then instead they're just kind of staying there like, oh, it called to me or it was never Snape's, blah, blah, blah. But like,
it's funny that they downplayed the Deathly Hallows so much in the actual Deathly Hallows film.
Yeah, it's called Deathly Hallows. Like, that was ringing through my head too. I'm like, this is called Deathly Hallows. We don't get a lot about the Deathly Hallows.
We
Like
use
Ollivander's story is so much better. Griphook's story is so much like the exposition. I guess it would be exposition, but I do think that they could have found a way to do it because they found a way to do the Purple story, and that was brilliant and beautiful. So I think, and they could have added more stuff in Half-Blood Prince and like leading like Order of the Phoenix as well to build setup.
Agreed.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. In positives though, before probably like my before my actual like favorite scene, I will say like I really love the whole confrontation in the Forbidden Forest between Harry and Voldemort, and then the whole like limbo scene with Dumbledore.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene in the movie. Yeah, I like that scene.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Well, yeah, rightfully so. It's a great one. It's
I like the line. He's like, "Am I like where am I?" He's like, "Is this all of this real?" It's like, "Oh, just because it's
what's in your head doesn't mean it's not real or something."
Not real.
Yeah.
Or
I love that line. Yeah,
that's literally the line. Yeah.
Or like pity the living or something is also a good line.
Yeah, don't pity the dead, pity the living. Stuff.
Those who
because
live
again,
without love or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only time in the movie where everything like just freezes, like everything's still, and I'm like, thank God, I can finally
breathe
enough, in this movie.
The beginning of the movie gets 2 scenes in a row of the Goblin scene and Ollivander's scene in the house, and I really like those scenes because, especially the wand dude scene is like you're lying, like the Hallows. Yeah, we know that the Hallows is real, and it's like. They leave. They're about to leave, and he's like, Potter, if he has this, like, you're screwed. And like, I really love that. Like that, you're like, there's no validation that like you are going to, probably die. It's a really good setup.
Because I want to get into like the Snape twist thing. But before it's just I'm gonna address because like we're not really gonna be talking about the Fantastic Beasts stuff.
No,
but. And yeah, I know like you guys probably very much don't like it. I'm, fine. So I don't
mind them as separate films, but not in the Harry Potter universe. I don't like it.
I don't like them as anything. The second one is garbage.
Yes.
Okay. The second one goes down to a lot.
I almost walked out. Like I don't. That was my movie where I'm like,
it went down.
Okay, so this is. It's interesting because, like, I was just saying because I know they like bring up some Grindelwald stuff in these last 2 movies.
I totally forgot about that. I was like, he's in this movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, that's not Johnny Depp, but that's not. No, but it does make me kind of intrigued because I do want to like recheck out the Fantastic Beasts film because I have not watched.
Do you?
I do because I haven't watched Crimes of Grindelwald since I saw it in theaters.
You don't need to.
I think you should read the books though, because I'm pretty sure we get more Dumbledore backstory about, especially when his brother is talking about the basically how his sister. Again, another example of someone having blind faith in Dumbledore of his younger sister and how that all plays into it. And so Dumbledore is a really flawed character, and I think part of what maybe doesn't work in the Snape montage for me is we get all that over our head all at once. And so it's like, okay, I haven't had time to process this, and there's like 17 other things that I have to process right now.
I agree, because I think a lot of audiences come out of the movie still saying, like, Dumbledore's a pretty solid guy. I'm like, I don't think that's the case, or it's not supposed to be the case. Dumbledore's supposed to be he's a good person, but he's very flawed as well. And they kind of rush over that.
I will say like, it's interesting because I am watching, like, the whole time I was watching the series, it was like under the guise of like I know what's coming, so I think that's why I have like such a more like accepting sense of like anything that does happen, like the whole like Harry Ginny romance. Like you guys say like it could be held better, but like whenever they do have like a small cute moment, I'm like
you gotta read the book for a million times better.
Absolutely. But with the Snape stuff, I actually felt like this was the best Alan Rickman performance for Snape, because I just like sees more like emotional, like sadder side, in like
him like pleading to
good
on
pleading
that
to
cliff.
Dumbledore, or like that slow reveal when he's walking through Godric Hollow to see the bodies and stuff, and like he's holding Lily like while Harry's still in the crib, and
that's a great scene.
It's so good. I love the way it's shot. I love just like the presentation. I love that it flashed back through like the other movies where he's just watching Harry. And even when I was watching the movies, like in that time, I'm like watching Sorcerer's Stone. And I'm just like, he cares. Like,
right. It's such a complicated relationship. Like
he puts his body in front of Harry and Hermione and them in Prisoner of Azkaban when the wolf comes. I love that scene. He's like,
when I saw that, I was like, oh.
I think they did with Snape what they did with Draco in the films, in that they gave him a lot more humanity. Like I don't think that Snape is as human in the books as he is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because I think he's more shunned in the books as someone who, you know, he has this information and, you know, he's battling with, you know, this love-hate thing, yet, you know, he could have stepped in and done more, but you know what I mean? Like, and so
that's my thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of times where he's playing both sides, but he's leaning heavily against him so much. And so it's like, I think that all kind of gets, you know, glossed over maybe a little bit in that montage, but
Harry turned out fine. He didn't know.
And then the filmmaking though, the montage, it gets me every time. I'm like, oh my god, the music, the Patronus. I'm like,
like when he like cast it across the room.
Messed up. Like, I do think that Snape in the books, like Alan Rickman, just is amazing in that, and same with Tom Felton. Like, I love their performances so much, and I think that's why I like Snape more in the films than I do in the books, because I think his character is a bit different. And same with Draco. Like, I wish that Draco had a redemption arc, but I think most of that is Tom's performance for me. But I'm not a Snape fan in the books. I think he was a dick, but but I also think that like him and Dumbledore together are completely flawed characters. So
yeah.
I don't know. I liken Dumbledore almost to like, if any of you guys have read the Percy Jackson films or books, I think that he's more like a god. Like he kind of had to do what he had to do, but he also, like, I think it's complicated, like the way that he is.
Percy Jackson books are the best.
Yeah,
it's like I need to dive in, because I have like a couple times I've read Lightning Thief and I love it.
Rick Riordan's better than.
Have you never continued, Nathan? What?
You gotta continue.
I was limited by my 5th grade budget. I don't.
You know what? That's fair.
I can tell you they hold up, because I've read them all this year actually again.
But
it is funny because like I think that was quickly.
Sorry.
I think.
We'll get in the Percy.
One more Percy Jackson thing is, like, I think that was the first time I actually like registered like difference between book and film, because I was like, where is this blue Coca-Cola?
We do not talk about that film yet. Continue.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
What was I? Okay, I gotta remember. Okay,
Dumbledore.
So Dumbledore, and like, yes, he set up like the stone and the snitch, and like, you know, kind of left breadcrumbs, but also it's like, did he really mean that, like, he knew that he let Draco unhand him on the tower, and he was confident that Snape was really going to do it, and that the wand was not going to work? It could have. That is so risky if in the long scheme of things.
Yeah.
And so it's like, part of his flawed character is he leaves so much up to chance, and he kind of has a blind faith back in Harry, which I think is interesting to say the least.
I guess I could tip it off that, like, in like the moments like the hallway scene with Snape and Draco, that maybe Snape's like reporting back to Dumbledore in the meantime, but I can't really say, because it's like not completely clear. It's just, you kind of have to infer it, fill in your blank, I guess.
And it's almost like, I don't know how especially mysterious it is in the books, in terms, because I know like the Draco stuff is more like up for grabs in Half-Blood Prince, if I remember right. Like, we don't like the film explicitly like shows like Draco going through stuff, but I don't remember like specifically how much of like the Snape twist we get earlier on. I can't remember if that builds on like Dumbledore and Snape's relationship earlier than it does. Like,
I feel like I've seen a couple looks where I was just like, wait. If they knew or not, but
yeah, I don't think we don't get the Snape twist like at all in Half-Blood Prince in the book, but we do get more. Draco is more mysterious. Like, they definitely upplayed it in the films, because Harry just knows from the get-go He just thinks it's Draco, and then Hermione and Ron are like, "You're fucking crazy."
Here we go again.
It's also fascinating just to think like how the books were being written at the same time as like the movies were being made. Because I think Deathly Hallows came out in like 2007, and I think that's the same year as Order of the Phoenix. I think.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's wild just to think about. Like you're making like this big, like it's starting off with like the first film, and it's like this franchise is still going. I think Goblet of Fire came out the same year as Sorcerer's Stone did. Which is just the thought process of like planning this franchise out.
Which in hindsight
Stone came out like in the 1999, I thought.
No, like the book did, but like the I think I looked up the publication.
I know what you mean. Yeah, you're right.
But what was I gonna say?
The California book. Never mind.
Yeah. The book. But in hindsight, it's like I'm glad the books were at least ahead. Like, can you imagine if it was like a fact where the first book blew up and then all of a sudden the film rights went out and like they were like trying to
they
were trying to like overlap each other. Like it would be interesting.
That's what they did with Jurassic Park. Is like the film like changed stuff from the book, but like the movie was so popular they wanted the author to write another book. But like more in line with the movie than the
movie stuff.
Book.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was there more than one Jurassic Park movie? I don't.
That's a good take.
I have fun with Jurassic Park.
The most
3.
overrated franchise of all time is Back to the Future and Jurassic Park. I'm like,
really?
I might be.
Person has left the chat.
Wow.
Back to the Future is better than Jurassic Park. I'll just state.
Back to the Future is fantastic.
I'll agree with that. I mean, I don't give like the biggest like. I'm not like a huge like Jurassic Park is the best thing ever. Like I enjoy it a lot.
I love the first film, but I try to watch the rest of them. Vince Vaughn is in this. What? Like it's so random. I should watch them at some point. I remember them all being on TV, and I just couldn't get through the second one. But I
am a Lost World apologist, but like
I like Lost World, and I like Jurassic Park 3. I think Jurassic Park 3.
I like the new ones. I do. They're not nearly as good as the first one, but I do like the
Sure. Yeah. Look, there's actually a lot of Jurassic Park days we could go, and like
we should do a Jurassic Park episode.
We should, because you all will kill me for my take, but
I can just
Harry
roast Colin
Potter.
Trevorrow.
Harry Potter, yeah.
Oh God.
I know everybody is like, yeah, okay, no, we won't. But Harry Potter is a film.
It is a lifestyle. It is a.
I think.
Yes,
we should cap off here.
Religion,
like with our rankings. You want to do that now?
That's what I was just gonna say.
That would be good.
Well, now I want to change mine because
I should have made mine.
I will say, Half-Blood Prince, like as soon as I finished, and I I have to rank it. And when I went to go rank it, I started like rearranging all of the films. I was like, wait, I don't know. I was like, what am I looking for in a Harry Potter film? Am I here for whimsy or am I here for like deep mental stuff? I don't know.
I'm interested to see your rankings as someone who's never read the books, bro. You've got to read the books.
Let's go from like 8 to 1, least to best.
Least to best. Okay.
Oh, weird.
All right.
You guys go first. I'm gonna go first.
I have my list. You guys want me to
go first? Okay.
Okay.
Well, my least favorite is Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
I think they left way too much out, and I hated Voldemort and Bellatrix's death, and it will annoy me until the end of time. So. Yeah.
Oh well. Oh, are we all just doing our last pick for? Are we going like around for each number?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. My least is Deathly Hallows Part 1, even though I do recognize though that I feel like it is underrated. When like a lot of people like I know a lot of people say like it drags. Sorry, but I get that, but also I feel like there's like enough great stuff. And like I said, like, there's no like Harry Potter film I despise. I enjoy the whole franchise. So that in mind, cool. That's my number 8.
Okay, I just changed mine up, but
me too. I'm going through. I should have done this. I feel awful.
We're 3 hours into this podcast.
I think I'll go first then. I think mine is. I changed my opinion throughout the podcast. I think Emma and you guys.
I think I did too.
Half-Blood Princess. No, I'm kidding. No, I think.
Can you imagine? Flips it all the way back.
You're right.
I think Deathly Hallows 2 might be my worst. I think 1, I'll come around. I might rewatch 1. I just watched it last night, but I might rewatch 1, a little bit of 1, because I do like those quiet scenes. Even though it does drag, I like a couple of those quiet scenes more so than the fast-paced nature of part 2. So yeah, I think 2 is my least favorite.
Also, quick side note, the Ron and Hermione kiss is way better in the books too, and I really hated that they changed it in number 2 also.
All right. I'm going to go with... It's like, I don't know why I have such a connection to like Order of the Phoenix. But I think I'm ready to put it last. Yeah, I think it's...
That's fair.
I'm pretty sure you gave me so much time doing that in the past.
I did.
But yeah, also now it's higher for me. So
it was one of those movies that I got on, like, it was like that I distinctly remember. Like, I remember seeing some of the early Harry Potter movies, but it's the first one that I like kind of remember as a teenager, like, or like, 11-year-old or however old I was, like, oh, Order of the Phoenix, like Cho and Harry kissed under the mistletoe. There we go, like all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, movies, like that kind of movie for me. But now I'm like, I gotta put it last.
Reasonable.
I'm having so much trouble. This is hard. I messed up. I should have done this earlier.
Oh wait, Evan hasn't said his last yet.
No, I
he
think
did.
Deathly Hallows 2 is my worst.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah. We all
So
did.
wait, who's next and what number?
Emma,
I guess I'm
again.
next.
Okay.
My second least favorite one is Half-Blood Prince. Sorry, bros.
No, I mean,
Not from a film perspective.
I understand.
Adaptation
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Nathan?
My number 7 is actually Sorcerer's Stone.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay.
Which I was so shocked by, because I remember it being very much above my original ranking of like Half-Blood Prince and Order of the Phoenix, but I feel like ever since like I had that feeling of like Chamber just being so much more superior to me, I was just like looking at everything, and I feel like there was like a lot more cool concepts being introduced to me in these other films, versus just like the like very like laid back and just like new, because like you have the mystery in Sorcerer's Stone, but like it's a lot more simplistic, just like, oh, who's like, there's a troll in here, like stuff like that.
There's a troll
versus like my mind is being plagued by a Dark Lord and stuff like that. So that's just why I still love it. I love the whimsy and like the introductions, and they're phenomenal, but it is resting at my number 7.
Carson.
Okay, number 7, I'm putting Goblet of Fire.
Oof! Wow. Okay.
I might have Goblet too high on my list now.
And it's interesting because
that's how I felt originally.
Guys, I had Chamber last, and I love that movie, but like now
that's
I'm
what
realizing,
I always see from people, and
and I'm like,
people really dislike that one for some reason. I don't know.
I'm ready to bring it up. It's moving up.
Moving on up.
Come.
All right, so number 7, Goblet of Fire. Like, it's good. I could leave it though.
I might have to go with Deathly Hallows 1 now.
No way, guys. There's not that.
Look.
Rewatch Deathly Hallows Part 1.
I have. I think
today.
No.
It is better than 2 now. Because I had 1 last. I had 1 last for the longest time. But I think it is better than 2 now on a rewatch. Slightly better. And yeah, I can't bring myself to put Sorcerer's Stone or Chambers below those 2 movies, because I can't fault. Those movies are such good adaptations, and they're not as unique as Hallows or as Hallows filmmaking goes, but they're just so much fun to watch. Like, I just love watching those. So yeah, I think I have to go 1 for my 7th least favorite.
Yeah,
Deathly Hallows Part 1.
My number 6 is Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Okay.
So similar to Evan. Again, just because it wasn't the best adaptation for me. There were some scenes I really liked, but not my favorite. But I will say that in watching these more from a film perspective, I do think that I could swap my number 5 for Half-Blood Prince and maybe have them.
Yes, we did something.
And in
Evan, we
between.
did it.
Yeah.
Because I did realize that was the one I walked out on, and there's a lot left out of that. My number 5 as well, which will be the next one. But
I'm
I'll
gonna
send you a lot
reread
of
the
GIFs
books.
of Half-Blood Prince. a lot of like stocks.
After I finish, I'm reading Dune right now, the Dune series. I'm on the second book.
Good for you.
But after I finish the Dune series, I'm going to my childhood bedroom and I'm retrieving my entire collection, and I will read all of them and update everybody on my new, because I'll probably have new rankings. It'll be like, this is the Burrows. Don't know her.
I love that. Yeah.
Don't you dare, Carson.
So I'm excited to do that.
I love that. I feel good that Evan put Deathly Hallows Part 2 at the bottom of his list. So I feel like we've all come around a little
Guys,
bit.
I literally rewatched this last night and I'm like, oh, we're all gonna have this in like our top 4 or 5 for sure. And I'm like, no, like what happened? But now I'm like believing in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought so too, but yeah, sorry.
Okay. My number 6 is Goblet of Fire. Because I definitely recognize how it does kind of just fall into like basic, like it's action. But I'm just so hooked on like the third act of the film. Like I love it so much, and I like a lot of like the like little in between things sprinkled throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for like what it also like sets up with just like Harry's effects from Cedric's death and everything, I feel like is quite impactful. So that's why it's my number 6.
Carson.
Am I up again? Sorry. I'm going Chamber's Secrets.
All right.
Get out of here.
I'm ashamed, but you'll be happy that where I put Sorcerer's Stone. So
Okay.
I'm going Chamber's Secrets for 6 because
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a sucker for the filmmaking on the Deathly Hallows stuff. I don't know why. I just am. And it gets me. I'm a block. I don't know. I'm just like, ooh, big battle spells. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
I think what is this? Around 8, 7, 6 is Order of the Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my 6.
I think that's where I used to have it. Yeah.
So much blue. Why, David Yates? Why is it so blue? For no thematic reason. At least
David
for
Yates, if you get 3 hours into our podcast,
He saw the cover of the book and he was like, yes.
Yeah, at least in Half-Blood Prince, like the tone like is so gray and dark because the world is so dark now. But in Phoenix, it's just blue for no reason. I don't get it. Anyways, yeah, that's my 6.
Yeah. My number 5, which I could switch for Half-Blood Prince, I will say they're interchangeable at this point, is Order of the Phoenix. So I would either put Half-Blood Prince as number 5 and Order of the Phoenix as my second least favorite, or swap them back and back.
Progress. I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, my number 5 is Half-Blood Prince.
okay.
Look at that. Okay, because it used to be like 8. So
yeah, where did it used to be then? Jesus.
I'm
Yeah, it
proud
was
of
like
you.
7
I'm
or 8.
proud of
No,
this accomplishment.
Because I mean, like I said, I really like the stuff with like Draco and the Harry
Draco
Dumbledore
stuff
friendships.
is perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and like I guess like the humor is quite great, and the flashbacks. We did full reviews for 3 hours. We know, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's just why I have it there. Which is funny because I'm pretty sure I used to have Order of the Phoenix lower than it, but that's fun.
That's fun.
That's all right. Number 5, I got Deathly Hallows Part 2.
The disappointment in his voice.
It used to be, guys. I'm not even kidding you. Up until like 3 minutes ago, it was like number 3 or 4, and now I've literally talked myself out of it.
Live your truth, Carson.
And so,
Yeah.
I don't even have justification. I just rewind the podcast and listen to me like argue with myself.
I have justification.
I mean, to be honest, like even away from the adaptation standpoint, I just finished watching it hours ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
Part 2 is just so basic. It's just a really basic movie. It's just action, and it's sad for as a finale, but overall it's just okay. But I think my 5 is Goblet. Goblet of Fire. Which again, like I said earlier, middle of the road film, really great sets. I love the cast, but overall it's just okay.
Okay.
My number 4, following Evan again, is Goblet of Fire.
Wow.
Man, I thought so many people would put Goblets so much lower.
I think for me, Order of the Phoenix and Half-Blood Prince leave more out, and so did both the Deathly Hallows. And I'm still coming at it from an adaptation point. And I really like the Triwizard Tournament and the new characters that we get in this one. So
I'm having the Carson effect where like I had Goblet so much higher, and then I was like, wait.
I literally changed Goblet in my rankings a few minutes ago because I had it high too. But I'm like, you know what? It's not as good as the originals. Yeah.
We should have did our rankings at the top. My bad.
We should have. It would have been funny.
I'd have been really messed up. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're on number 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Prison. No, I'm kidding. We all know we're prisoners for everybody, but no. Number 4. Number 4, I have Order of the Phoenix. Surprisingly,
wow.
Okay.
top half. Because, I'm just so intrigued by the way they did like the mind stuff, and I like Harry's like anger breaking out. And I don't think I specifically like brought it up, but I love that moment when he's talking with Sirius. I think it's the same as when he gets the photo when he's just like so worried that he's turning into an evil person, but Sirius reassures him. Stuff like that is so good. Also, I felt like the flow of it was like, the pacing was like a lot better than I remember it. Like I remember it like dragging more when I was younger, but now, and also I think it's like one of the shortest run times as well, so that's probably why.
Yeah, I'm changing my list again.
You
literally just convinced
me. If you hadn't read the books, I could definitely see how that would be in your top 4 for sure.
Oh yeah, Carson, did I bring you back?
Outside of it,
But it's
Yeah,
so
you brought
blue.
me back over Goblet.
it's very blue.
I like the color blue.
I really like the DAC. There's a lot to love about that film. I just don't think it was executed nearly as well.
I don't think I mentioned it, but isn't this like the Harry Potter and Cho Chang romance in this one too?
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah.
Hey,
It was established in Goblet of Fire.
in Goblet of Fire, the heartbreak on the stairwell.
Cedric's dead. I guess I'll go with Harry now. It's like, Harry, you like being second place? Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Look, okay, yeah.
Am I wrong?
Right.
I mean, I knew that wasn't the relationship endgame, so it's fine. That was not what I was feeling on.
You know, I can't get over Cho Chang. That is the most racist stuff I've like.
It really
if I'm
is.
in that movie filmmaking, I don't care if it's adaptation. I'm just like, we gotta, JK, we gotta change this. We gotta change this. Like, come
Little
on,
did we know.
that's
Little did we know.
ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If I'm the actress, I'm like, I can't do that. Maybe
Yeah.
something else. Please, come on.
Like, we're not doing this. No.
Anyways,
Exactly right. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
my number 4.
I just like Professor Harry, man.
Professor Harry is so wholesome, and you just know it's gonna like just cut to Deathly Hallows Part 2, and he comes out of the memory thing, and he's like, I
He
have
gets
to
shot
die.
halfway across the room, and he's like, "Good job."
Oh yeah, the little kid. What's that kid's name? I love him.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Ricky. Oh,
Ricky, it's not Ricky. I could
He's
tell.
like
you.
it's not the photographer from Chamber of Secrets.
No, but it looks exactly.
I
like
always
him.
thought it was.
I did too, and that's a different name. That's not Colin.
Next person.
Okay, number 4, I got the OG Sorcerer's Stone.
Wow. Okay.
Because it deserves to be there. I've decided that, like I said before, I think my justification is I don't think anything else in the series would have worked if it wasn't for this introduction to the world and just kind of perspective of wonder, childlike wonder, that discovering Hogwarts for the first time and just like experiencing the setting for the first time. And you know, it's very close adaptation, and I think it's just like Harry Potter in its most pure form. And I think, yeah, that's why it's my top 4.
Maybe it's a bit too close an adaptation, but I did put Sorcerer's Stone as my number 4 as well. I just switched it earlier because I had Goblet of Fire above Chambers and Sorcerer's Stone, but I switched back. I just think Goblet is like the weakest from a directorial standpoint.
Yeah.
But I like Sorcerer's Stone a lot. Like, I love that movie. I can't fault it too much besides it not being unique enough for me. So yeah, that's my number 4, Sorcerer's Stone. Or yeah.
Number 3 for me is Chamber of Secrets.
Nice.
It's a really good adaptation. It terrified me as a child. I never wanted to go in my grandparents' pool after seeing the basilisk come out of a pipe.
Wow.
It was really good, and I like young Tom Riddle's performance in it, and I think it's one of Draco's best performances as well.
Oh yeah. My number
Nathan, for the sake
Yeah.
of time, shall we just say what our top 3 is? Not that I
sure.
don't want to keep going.
Yeah, sure.
No, we're this deep. Okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, we could like we could still like go around but rapid fire if we
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
because I was emotionally manipulated, my number 3 is Deathly Hallows 2. Just because I'd be crying twice watching that movie, so that's just why. I'm a very emotional watcher, so that's how I rank films. Okay.
I feel that because my number 3 is Deathly Hallows Part 1 for the slow and subtle Harry and Hermione moments, Godric Hollow, the dance, the heist is fun. It's a good time. It ain't the best, but it's really resonates with me.
Yeah, I don't like the Ron stuff in Part 1. Ron just gets super angry and then leaves out of nowhere. And then, hey, I always meant to come back. It's like, hey, get out of
Well,
here.
he's got the Horcrux on, but
Take it off. Take it off. Anyways, my number 3 is Chamber of Secrets. Yep.
Wow.
It's great. I love Tom Riddle, just like Emma. Yep.
Love it.
My number 2 is Philosopher's Stone, because again, great adaptation and nostalgic. Can't fault it. Started the series.
All right, my number 2 is Chamber of Secrets, which surprised me that it's so high, because it never was before. But again, just like all the stuff I gushed about, I love it. It's just because so many moments I was watching, I was like so like giddy or just like hyped. I was just like, this is so good at so many moments. So that's probably why.
Okay, number 2, I'm going Prisoner of Azkaban. It's interchangeable for me with my top 1.
Okay.
But Alfonso Cuarón, I think it's the most distinct Harry Potter movie. I think it's the perfect adaptation of the ones that are very close to the books. And I think it has some of the best performances from the supporting cast members.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2 is Prisoner of Azkaban as well, even though I should say it's number 1 because I flip-flop it all the time. I flip-flop it with...
Yep.
You guys say they're interchangeable. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'm so shocked they're not your number 1s.
Yeah.
Are you
my
that?
number one is Prisoner of Azkaban.
As is mine.
Great movie.
Yeah. Fantastic Beasts. No.
My number 1, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of J.K. Rowling.
The crimes of screenplays.
The sacred text.
I'm actually gonna rewatch them. I'm gonna actually give an honest opinion on them in new eyes.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that.
I'll watch that podcast.
Oh yeah. Just to hop in the comments. It's like, no, why? But no, I get it. So
Carson?
that's everybody then? Or
Yeah, well, we're bottom of the screen. We're on our...
We're
I still am going strong for Half-Blood Prince.
It's a character-centric story. It's like the most character-centric story. Snape, Dumbledore, Draco, Harry, Hermione. Their best performances, their best arcs. It looks the best. Those wide shots are beautiful.
Agreed.
I
think it has the most... Other than Prisoner of Azkaban, I think it has the most control over the tone of Harry Potter that I've seen. And I just commend it for that so much. And I think also just as I've grown up, it's grown on me more as just like, it feels like that film that like you're about to go off to college and like it's your last normal year and like it's scary and the real world is like caving in on you. And I guess I just like that sense of doom. It's like the calm before the storm, even though Deathly Hallows Part 1 is also kind of that. I feel like it's a true kind of like calm before the storm, the death of Hogwarts kind of movie. That's why I like it.
You guys definitely changed my opinion on it a little bit. It's definitely higher on my list. And I also like that we're split because when I put this poll on my Instagram, people's favorites were either the Half-Blood Prince or Prisoner of Azkaban. Almost unanimously.
Wow.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think that about does it for Harry Potter and the Deathly Podcast Part 1 and 2.
There's some more movie news. No, I'm kidding. We're good.
Breaking! No. No, but it was definitely like such a fun time to host this with a special guest, Emma, who I will go ahead and kick it off to. Emma, where can the good people at home find you?
You guys can find me at FanCity Central TV on Instagram, FanCity Central on YouTube, and FanCity TV on Twitter. And I do fandom content, everything fandom, basically. A lot of Harry Potter and Netflix and CW stuff. So,
Evan, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter, still talking about Harry Potter, Big Brother. Emma, we got to talk about Percy Jackson sometimes. I just brought my Percy Jackson books from home to my apartment here, so because I really want to reread them because the Disney Plus series.
I'm so excited for the series.
So super excited. I love Rick Riordan. But yeah, I'll be doing that.
Carson, where could the people find your Harry Potter themed cats?
You guys can find me trying to resurrect David Yates' career and well-being. He has been seen since 2011. Rest in peace. Hopefully he comes back soon. Other than that, I'm on Twitter at the Film Carson, and talking about Harry Potter and how I don't know how I'm going to reread the books and just like completely change my worldview once again on all these movies and the wizarding world. Maybe I'll take the housing test and I won't be Gryffindor anymore, and then I'll really just be earth shattered. But yeah, this was a great time. I love talking about Harry Potter. It's been 3.5 hours. I'm tired.
Yeah. In what is our longest running podcast to date on either genres we do. This was phenomenal, and I'd totally be down to do more stuff like this again and just rewatch franchises. It's super fun. But yeah, with that being said, as always, you can find
Transformers.
me no,
just kidding.
I will kick you. Never watching The Last Night, but yeah. As always, you can find me here on the channel, and all of our links in the description below right now. So that being said, if you made it this far, thank you. And if you did enjoy our podcast, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already. And that being said, hope you have a great day, and may the force be with you always.